when it comes to Windows, actually, I don't hate Windows, but it'd be nice if Windows could be a little bit like Linux in the way that Linux works. Whereas it's cheap, it comes with all the programs that you need, right? Which is what Linux does. And why can Linux as a community give so many applications for free, and Windows still charges you a fortune just for the operating system, and then you've got to buy everything else after that. So, and that's where I think a lot of people struggle with that expense, I believe.
Well, it's like, okay, I'll install a Linux operating system, but I'll go back to my family again where they will, you know, they don't even worry about installing Windows. They'll run the same Windows until their computer dies, and then they'll buy another
Yeah.
computer with Windows on it. So they never have to worry about any headaches of installing or anything like that. So I
Mm.
don't know.
And they have the old,
I don't think Windows is ever going to be like Linux, though.
no, no, no,
And I
no
wouldn't want it
way.
to be either. I mean,
No.
because it
I
would
like the
probably
look
be
of
a
Windows
tactic.
10. Windows 10 looks amazing. I like the interface. A lot of people don't like it for some reason, but I don't. I actually don't mind it, to be honest. It looks
I don't
nice.
mind the
It
interface.
looks a lot like KDE.
It
Yeah,
does. They
well,
stole from
yeah.
KDE.
That's stuff.
And then they put, with Ubuntu built into it now, and it's just so. Yeah, it's going to be pretty interesting where it's all going. The one thing I have to tell you, Rocco, how many weeks now it's been, right, since I mentioned that I'm on the same distro. I haven't hopped.
See, you're cured.
I'm sure. For the time being, I am until it gives me a hiccup or something.
Hey, I'm finally starting to get that itch to move. For the longest time, I've been running this Unity GNOME install, and I wasn't having any problems, and I didn't have any reason to move. But slowly but surely, I'm having like little tiny minor issues with GNOME, and I don't think it's so much GNOME, but it just may be just stupid little glitches here and there,
Mm-hmm.
things freezing, that kind of thing. So I'm finally getting, and I'm so torn between going to Budgie or KDE, back to KDE. I'm so torn
Back
because I
to
love KDE, man, because it's awesome. But Budgie is so stinking awesome too as well. I don't know. I'm so torn.
Well, I will tell you, even this one, as much as I'm loving it, it doesn't go without its little glitches too. Because one of the things I had on here is I had the desktop notifications turned on for YouTube,
Yep.
and pop up in the corner. It would say activate or whatever, and it would do nothing. It was just like this little picture painted up there, its message. And the only way I could get it off the screen is I'd have to reboot. So I had to turn that feature off. Is that something that's going to make me change distros? No. But what worries me is if they don't get it corrected and another bug starts or another glitch starts, and those are the things that make you want to all of a sudden
Yep.
go somewhere else. But
It is. It's the little things that just creep up and they just accumulate, and then it's like, you know what? Trying
yeah,
something new.
yeah.
Well, I've been messing around with Revenge OS, Rocco,
Which version?
and I actually installed the GNOME version or GNOME, whichever
I
way you
so
want to
wanted to
say it.
try that. Is it any good?
It's not bad. That's actually not bad at all. And so I've made a few videos, and I've found, just in case you're wondering, because it does run Wayland by default, and
Hmm.
I can't see any other option on logout and logging back in to run Xorg. I don't know how you change it over. I didn't really look into it, but I found a screen recorder for Wayland, which is called Green Recorder,
Green Recorder.
and
Yeah, I've heard of it.
yeah, yeah, and that actually works quite well. So, and so far, I've installed the Steam, done the sim links for the Steam, and run the Steam games. I didn't actually play the game, but it starts up. There's no flickering or anything, so no flickering on recording. So it all seems quite good. So far, so good.
That's good, man, because like you can install an operating system and it can look great. But it's not until you test it with your stuff and your programs
Yeah.
and everything else that you get to say, you know, you can run an operating system for a day or two and everything's fine. And then you go to install a game or something to that effect, and then it's not working. It's like, it's a deal killer.
Yeah.
Well,
I wanted to ask you something, Rocco. Sorry, Joe.
No, go ahead. That's all right. Go ahead.
I wanted to ask you something because we were talking to Zebedee last week, and he had that issue where he wanted the sim linking done for his different distros. Now, I tried Peppermint and Linux Mint, and I was making videos on sim links. And after I spoke to Zeb, I went back to those videos, and I tried sim linking Steam games in Peppermint and Linux Mint. Now, when I installed Steam on those two, there was no .local share Steam folder. So I sim-linked it anyway. So I sim-linked the Steam folder into .local share Steam, didn't show up. Then I went into the settings of Steam and I went to look at that sim-link folder, and that didn't show up either. It didn't show up as far as being able to select it. So I don't know what the issue is there. Now, with Revenge OS, everything worked fine. Now, you can add the Steam folder as a if you just add a new folder in the library in the settings, you can do it that way without sim linking, not a problem. But Peppermint and Linux Mint, I don't know whether it's the way it installs Steam or what, I don't know. I uninstalled from the software center. I reinstalled with the .deb file, but it was the same thing. So
Right. Well, it should be the same. I mean, regardless of what it is, it should install in the same spot. I don't know why, but to be honest with you, I've never had good success with crossing over with my Steam profile, Steam games from one distro to another. I mean, being a distro hopper makes it really, really hard to have all of your stuff, especially with Steam, because the games are so big, and you know, I don't want to copy all of that stuff over, and I've never had a whole lot of success keeping it. So me being on this install is probably the longest I've had everything set up, and if I jump, I'm probably going to end up having to like redo everything, because even when you copy over files and stuff, you'll have errors within Steam saying it can't read this or can't read that, and at least I have in my experience. So I don't know, man.
Do you load your games on a separate drive?
The games are on a separate drive. See, I have my games drive for Windows, and they are on a separate drive on that Steam. But on Linux, I don't have them on a separate drive. I have them on my home folder. Now they're on a separate partition.
On a separate partition.
They're on a separate. I have my home partition separated from my root partition, but it's on the same drive.
Yeah. See, maybe I thought maybe I was taking the chance doing the way I have it, but I have a Windows hard drive, which is an SSD, and actually one of the things driving me nuts right now is I've got a mechanical drive in there right now until I get another SSD for my Linux. So I'm going to try doing a cloning. Hopefully that goes well. But in any event, I've got a 4 terabyte drive in there, and I just have them in whatever folders I want them in. And I actually have been able to share, like if I go into my home folder now, I can still see the Windows drive. Now, is that risky? Sure. If you don't know what you're looking at, you could turn around and you can trash that drive. But I know enough to stay away from it or just unmount it or whatever. But I'm able to go into either drive and access those same files. And the only thing I have to worry about, like even when I had Ubuntu Mate in here before, it was 1704, before I went to this, all I had to do was just reinstall Steam and reinstall the initial files that it puts into the home folder.
Right.
And that was fine. It just picks up the files as long as that the separate hard drive is mounted. It sees everything that I need. So,
Zeb, what's going on?
Good evening, guys. You all right?
Hello.
Yep.
Hiya. Yeah, I just caught the end of that. You're having trouble sim linking your Steam stuff. You said it wasn't working on Peppermint and Mint.
It didn't work on Peppermint and Mint. I can actually get the games in there if I just add the folder from and it's on a separate partition. Now, you, Rocco, with having a partition, if you only once copy your original Steam folder from local share Steam onto a separate partition, then all you need to do is link that to whichever distro it's on. You don't have to copy anything. It'll just pick it all up. But what I was saying, Zeb, is in Peppermint and Linux Mint, there was no .local share Steam.
No, there won't be. It'll be the name of the game that you run. So for argument's sake, Euro Truck Simulator 2, I've got a Mount SSD 2, which is my Peppermint folder, home Zebedee .local share Euro Truck Simulator 2, because that's where I started the game. So when I'm now on Mint, and I'm still using that same profile because I've sim-linked back to that folder. But if you start the game in Mint, you then can't have a symlink. Yeah, right. So you create the symlink before you start the game. But you're right, there is no Steam in .local. It's just the game file that's in .local.
No, but when I install, a couple of others I've installed is on Solus, and now I'm running Revenge OS. Well, not here I'm not, but when you install Steam, those operating systems have a folder called .local share Steam. So, and if I've got the games that I had in there, they're on that separate partition, and that folder is called Steam. I just add that into .local share, and it picks up the games and it plays them.
Weird.
So, and all I do is symlink that folder, and it plays them.
Yeah, because Zeb, I have the game like you're talking about, American Truck Simulator, Rocket League, all as in the .local folder as separate games, like not in a Steam folder. There is a Steam folder in .local, but the games are separate.
Right.
And that makes it difficult if you're playing multiple games, because you would have to set up multiple symlinks.
Right.
Back to the home folder. But I mean, I'm lucky. I just play Euro Truck Simulator, and every OS I've gone on to, I've been able to symlink back to Euro Truck. I'm going to be starting something else soon, because English Bob wants to get us all driving tanks around or flying aeroplanes around and shooting us up in a convoy or something.
War Thunder.
That's the game, yeah, War Thunder. So I've got to learn how to play that.
It's a lot of fun. The thing is, for mine, you're talking about all this, having to go through the share process, but again, the way it puts it in mine, it'll actually put on the separate hard drive. Yes, you have your Steam folder on your primary drive, but it has all the separate game folders on the secondary drive. And then once I mount that, as soon as I go to Steam and bring up my library, I can see all of them. It'll say, oh, like I only have like 13 games. I probably only play 2 or 3 of them right now. But you can click just Linux, or you can click just Windows on your Steam and pick which ones you want to go for. And then, matter of fact, now Grid just went across platform, where Grid actually will run in Linux now too. Excuse me, Payday, not Grid, Payday. Grid's supposed to.
Well, let me ask you a question here.
Yeah, go on.
Like I said, I have my Steam library on Windows on a 2 terabyte drive separate, but I have my Linux Steam folders on the SSD. So would I cause problems switching between Windows and Linux if I symlinked from the 2 terabyte drive over to my SSD, so that I could have the same profile or the same game with the same settings?
I don't get any problems with Euro Truck, but I have read that you can have problems with other games. Now, let's remember there's 2 different things we're talking about here, yeah? There's the location where you download and install your game, yeah? Mm-hmm. And that can be shared across multiple OSs and multiple distros. But then each time you play the game, it stores a local profile somewhere. And that's your difficulty. So having your 2 terabyte drive with all your games installed to, that's fine. But it's working out how each individual game stores the progress and it doesn't store it in the same place where you download it to.
Right.
Right. Okay.
So that's the tricky thing, and each game does it differently.
I was going to say each game must do it differently because it looks like the Rocket League folders are exactly the same as the one in Linux, in the .local folder. So maybe Rocket League would work, maybe other games might not.
It just depends if when you're in Windows, is it playing DirectX? Because if it is, has it put something in the .local file that when you go to Linux and it's now got to use GL, it might not work.
Right. Yeah, that would be new.
Multiple gamers will have to try that.
I never thought there'd be so much headaches trying to play games.
You're right.
That's why I just use Windows, man. You know.
Hey, you got to use whatever works, man. If Windows works, well, okay. I use Windows for a lot of games because they just, for example, when I play Rocket League, I'd much rather play on Windows only because I have a Logitech mouse and Linux doesn't recognize half the buttons on it. So, you know,
it just works.
It just works.
Works.
Well, because Logitech won't make drivers for Linux. So, you know, I blame Logitech for that. But
do we know where the progress is saved? Is it saved in the .local or is it saved in the .steam?
It's different for each game. You'll have to work it out.
Different for each game. Oh, okay, that's what it is. Right.
It's the typical. There's a standard, but no standard because nobody adheres to it.
Games are supposed to be fun, not a headache.
Which is why, if ever you've seen me play Euro Truck Simulator, I don't play it as a simulator. I play it as wacky races. Watch out, I'm coming at you. Yeah, I don't stop at traffic lights. I don't worry about cars in front of me in the motorway. I'm up over the top of them, and if I crash, okay, I pay to get to the next depot, and if not, we keep going.
Sounds like something I would do. Yeah.
It's just
I'm going to have to watch some of your videos then.
Yeah, have a look. There's some real mental crashes on there, and I even go off road sometimes because I've jumped the barrier during a crash, and then I managed to get myself back on again. So that's all good fun.
Well, you ought to see me play Asphalt 8 Airborne, whacking texters, drivers texting and just whack them off. I don't care if I just want to whack them off the road. You know, road rage, boom. You got mail, whack. You know.
Bad Wolf says that the Linux versions of the games are different than the Windows counterparts, so it's probably not going to work too well. Symlinking from the 2 terabyte drive. Well, the only reason I need to is because, or the only reason I would want to is because, for some, well, I guess because Rocket League stores their settings differently. I have certain cars that I have customized and use in Rocket League on Windows, and everything that gets uploaded to Steam, like achievements and things you earn, are all there when I come back. Like if I come over to Linux and I boot into that, they'll all pop up and they'll say, hey, you achieved this, and they'll all bring them in, but they won't bring the cars in that I have set up. So it's storing different things in different places.
So the games are...
See, that's why I say I don't know if what I'm doing is so primitive, and maybe I haven't loaded the right games yet to cause the issues you're having, but with the games I have, like even Battlefield 3, which I still haven't gotten Battlefield 1 in here, but I load that, and I actually have a games folder that's separate, which has my origin files in there for that game, and then all my Steam games are in a different one, but yet anything that's Windows that's through Steam is all in the Steam apps folder within here. And I, knock on wood, I don't want to jinx myself, but anything I've played, and if you remember right, Rocco, it wasn't that long ago, I was complaining that on Payday, which was a Windows base, which, again, when I saw they went to Linux, I thought, oh, let me try it. And I was getting that kind of almost like a rasterized look, or it had that red line around it. It wasn't right. Well, shortly after that, NVIDIA came out. There was a driver update in here within Linux, and boom. And I don't know if that's what did it or what, but it was corrected, and I haven't had a problem since. So I think that would make sense if it was a video driver. So.
Yep. Well.
So the games.
And by the way, too, I noticed updates yesterday in Mint. They had a Wayland update in there too with my Mint version here.
Wayland in Mint.
Wayland doesn't work for me. I've got an NVIDIA card. It just fails every time.
Yeah. Well, now I'm concerned about trying Revenge OS there, the GNOME version, because you said it's Wayland by default, Colin?
Yes, it's Wayland by default. I don't know if you can change. Does anyone know if you can change? Because I can't see.
You should be able to log out and click. Shouldn't you be able to log out and click on a cog?
There's no cog there. Because I was looking for the cog, but there was no cog. So I don't know what the deal is with that.
Had you clicked on your name to do your password first? Because some of them I find they're in the top right-hand corner with the clock, and others you have to click on your name, and before you put your password in, then underneath there's a cog.
I'm sure I clicked on my name, but maybe I'll have to. Well, you know, after you do so many things, your memory becomes clouded, doesn't it? So I may have to look at that, but I'm sure I did that, and there was nothing there. But I'm running Intel, so Intel seems to be, when you're running Intel, it seems to accept everything anyway. You never seem to have many problems when you're running Intel. And with this little Skull Canyon nut, it's very powerful. So, so you can even play games on that and they seem to run fine with 32 gigs of memory as well. So it's never an issue.
Well, Das, he said it's my issue with Rocket League is whether or not it supports Steam Cloud. So I don't know. I guess they need to get on the stick, so get it working with Steam Cloud, so that all of the settings get saved rather than just some of them.
Ooh, what's Steam Cloud?
That's where it saves your customizations for everything.
That's what happens after you go to Taco Bell, the Steam Cloud.
Well,
I had a thought.
Go ahead, Colin.
I had a thought. If you add your Steam games as a folder, so you go into the settings and add it as a folder and set that folder as default. But if you, every time you do an install and you install Steam, whether it has a .local share Steam folder and or a .steam, if you was to symlink those two back to those two being kept on a separate partition, then that information would always be there, wouldn't it? So whatever information you do, that will always update the .local steam and the .steam, wouldn't it? So if I'd have to think that your game progress is saved in one of those folders, isn't it? I have to think. So every time you symlink back to those on a fresh install, it should be picking up those all the time. Oh, maybe, I don't know.
Well, what about a manual save in Steam? I know if you're in the cloud, if you're through a DLC, if you go into the cloud there and log in to your Steam account through, as an example, American Truck Simulator, you can do a manual save, which would be like your last backup. I don't know if that would save all your settings. I would think so if you're saving everything, your progress and all that. Wouldn't that make sense? Versus worrying about it being on your drive, I would think, if you save it up on the server. On the server,
yeah. So Steam Cloud, does that work for Linux and for Windows, is it?
Well, it's when you log in, you literally log in. Like when I go in to play my games now, I literally log in and play them logged into my account, where before you can theoretically play any of those games if you wanted to without logging into your Steam account. You have to log in, of course, just to be able to access your library, but to go into the actual server end of it or do the online, where if you were going to do multiplayer or whatever, you have to log in through their DLC, because you'll see it before. Matter of fact, I wish I could do a screen share on here.
You can.
See back, there'll be a logo up there. It'll say DLC, and then when it logs in, that disappears, and you actually go in. You're live, basically playing it, and it'll save your progress. But then you can actually do a manual save within there too. And the reason I know that is because I made the mistake of backing out and getting rid of some of those saves, and then I saw it put me back to, it's like a restore in Windows or a previous restore point. Everything I took out went back to whatever point it was. So now I'm a little more careful in how I do that. That was part of my learning curve with it a little bit. I'm still learning, but I would think if there's a a method of saving it up there, why wouldn't it save your settings for everything else?
There doesn't seem to be an on-off switch either for each individual game. I'm looking at it now. It says enable Steam Cloud synchronization for applications which support it. That's all it says.
Yeah, so it's something that's built in, and it just depends on whether the game supports everything, and that's probably why Rocket League it supports some of like the achievements, but it won't support doing the cars.
Yeah, and that's the same as Euro Truck Simulator.
It's based on the actual game.
Yep.
Okay. Well, and then if that's the case, then Rocco, I think I hate to say it, I think you're kind of dead in the water then, aren't you really, when you think about it?
Pretty much.
Well,
Bad Wolf and a couple of the guys, Vegan, they were talking in chat, and I think maybe I'll try finding the folder where the cars are stored, and just that folder, and symlinking that to Linux. So I don't have to actually symlink like game files, or game files that mean anything. Right. Like a DirectX folder or anything, but just the cars themselves, because that's really the only thing I'm missing.
That might work.
I just got to find out where they're located at in Windows.
Yeah.
What was the name of that movie years ago? Dude, where's my car?
Yeah.
Where's my folder?
Well, you're the Windows guy, Toss. Where is it? Come on, tell me where it is.
In Linux? Are you asking me? You talking to
me? You talking to me?
I don't do a lot of gaming in general, but usually I do it in Windows because it's just less issues, mainly with the video drivers. So the number one issue with Linux right now for me, probably, unknown or unstable video drivers, not knowing when they're going to work or not. If Linux could solve the video driver issue, you would probably see a lot more games work the way they should. That's my, speculation. I've played some games in Linux, not a lot. They've worked, but in terms of what I think is going to work 100% or 99.9% sure, I got to stick with Windows. A lot of my subscribers they say can't switch to Linux because of gaming. I completely understand. But look, 10 years ago versus now, Linux has gotten a lot better in general. And maybe 10 years from now, we may not be talking about video drivers. We may not be talking about gaming as a problem. We may be talking about networking or whatever it is.
Yep.
But if you go back and listen to Lunduke's Linux Sucks,
yes,
he was saying the same things 10 years ago that he's saying now. We've got problems with Linux drivers. We've got problems with compatibility.
It's true,
and it's exactly the same.
It's true.
Zorg, how long has that been around? Since Fred Flintstone was born? The display driver. That's the number one problem now, I think, in general. Like this desktop here I have, my screen goes blank occasionally. You guys don't see it, I do, and it comes back on. It doesn't affect performance, but that's the video driver issue. But I learned to live with it. I'm not going to buy a new computer because Linux can't get his act together, or companies can get their act together for like video drivers. So,
but how long have they been building Wayland?
5 years, 4 years, 5 years. I don't remember.
Long enough that you would think that it should be working.
It's working great, Rocco, as far as I can tell.
I think Ubuntu had
here. For me, brother.
Ubuntu had here, and then they got rid of that. So.
But going back to your window game, Rocco, surprisingly, my Euro Truck Simulator stored my profile in my documents.
Documents.
In my documents in Windows, and I thought, what a bizarre place to put a profile for a game.
I don't want to mount my Windows drive because I always worry that I'm going to mess something up and then not be able to boot into it. So it's probably there. It probably is there.
Well, on NVIDIA, even the driver update that they did on my Linux Mint here is still not current with what would be the same driver for Windows. They always seem to be lagging behind a little bit with it. They have come a long way, but I do agree that it's I don't know why it's always this catch-up game, and it's not just with that either. It's even with some of the software, that's out there. It's always seems like it's a couple versions behind.
So in Mint, we're on 385.59. Sorry, 384.59. Mm-hmm. So what is it on Windows?
God,
I don't remember. I don't remember what it is.
Let's go and have a look.
Michael, what's going on?
Not much. Wayland was 2008, by the way.
So nearly 10 years.
That's not encouraging at all.
No.
It's
2008 to 2012, it was one guy by himself. And also, it wasn't. It's people act like it's going to be like the second coming, and it's not. It's not even a display server. It's a protocol. So you can't, just by having Wayland done, the thing is, it's not complete. You still need a compositor. You still need a display server. You still need everything to go to connect together. And so people saying like, well, Wayland's not ready. It's like, Wayland's only one piece anyway. So.
Right.
So it's just one piece of the puzzle.
Yeah. The reason why X is so, broken is that it's bloated and it has everything built into one. And in order to do that, they're compensating in a ton of ways. So like Weston, for example, is a reference compositor, not even like people go like, well, we got Wayland and Weston. Like, well, Weston is not even meant to be used. It's a thing that's like, here's what you should do in order to make your compositor work with Wayland. But you have a testing bed for like comparison of what works and what doesn't. That's what it's for.
Can they not fix X?
Yeah.
Can they not fix X program because everything works on it? Can't they just sort it out?
X is gigantic and its code base is massively legacy. It's been around for 25 years and longer than Linux. And it also has an issue of the amount of people who work on it is like 10 max. And most of them say that they don't even understand fully how it works. That's a problem.
That's a problem.
And it's also because the people who developed it no longer work on it, and it's people who are adopting the code. So like when it was originally made, there was like about 30 people that were working on it, and all of them are gone. So like the people who are working on it now are just trying to like work on different pieces of it and improve certain aspects and try to and fix whatever they can. Really.
Sounds like another XFCE.
Well, except Xorg is useful.
Where's the band button? Hey, give me a moderator.
That was good.
I thought I was the comedian here. I guess not. Excuse me.
Just for the record, my NVIDIA driver, and I think it's probably based on my card more than anything else, is actually further behind what you're talking about. It's 375.66 is what my card is for the latest driver. I think it's for my 760 that's in this machine.
Have you added the PPA Xorg thing?
No, I haven't. I haven't gone in manually and done it. But I tell you why, because I think the last time I tried that, and it might have been on Ubuntu Mate, it messed stuff up. So I just kind of thought, well, let it do it by its natural
progression.
Yeah. If you want to release it than me going in there and rushing it, because I know you can go in there and you could push it up, but every so often this thing's running. It's like, if it isn't broke, don't fix it, kind of a thing. And that's what I've kind of gotten down to now, because I don't want to have to start over from scratch again. I was just telling Rocco how I haven't hopped in several weeks now. So it's I'm kind of liking this one, and I just don't want to break it. So,
are you on the Cinnamon?
What's that?
Are you on the Cinnamon desktop?
No, I'm on Mate. I'm on Mint Mate 18.2. So, and I'm liking it. I mean, I don't know. I was on KDE for a long time. I was on Mint KDE, actually 17.3, because I didn't like the 18 version the way it came out. It just didn't float my fancy as much. But then when I found this, this has been, other than, like I mentioned, there was a little glitch with the notifications. If you do the desktop notifications for, this example, this show or any other ones you follow, they wouldn't go off the screen. It would always stay on top of everything. You could click on it. It was like it wasn't even there. It was almost like it was embedded, and the only way I could get rid of it was reboot. So I just turned those off, and that's the only knock on wood glitch so far that I've had. So,
can I ask you a question about that?
Say again.
I just wanted to know if you so like if your reference of KDE Plasma is Mint, is that the only reference you have?
You talking to me or is that
you?
Yeah. I was using I actually, my earlier days I used to go on Kubuntu. You know, I kind of liked Kubuntu at first. I haven't really tried Neon or anything like that. But yeah, it was pretty much Mint's KDE was the one I was using, and I did like it for a long time. But then when they came out with the I think it was 18.1 or whatever, I went back to 17.3 because I just, even though it was a cleaner look, I just didn't care for it as much. I just didn't. I don't know.
Anything particular that you didn't like about it?
You know, it's been so long I don't remember, but I think if I remember right, I thought there were features they took out. And it just didn't seem to, maybe it was my machine, it didn't seem to run as well on it for me. I don't remember. It was something about it that I just wasn't liking. And honestly, I don't remember. It's been that long since I've been on it. It's probably last fall or whenever they just released it, whenever 18 was released. So that was what? Was that around the holidays? I can't remember.
No, that was like June. 18.0 was like June last year.
Right, 18. Yeah, okay. So it was further back. I knew it was last year.
Release, but they do like a month and a half after Ubuntu.
Okay, all right, so yeah.
It's never like an actual time. They never give you like a definitive thing. It's just usually around June or July, and then in 6 months after that. So, but the transition between KDE 4 and Plasma 5 is a massive difference. It's like there's a ton of code changes and stuff, and I would say for me that the Plasma 5 runs better. So that'd be interesting that you say that it's the opposite, because that's not something I've experienced.
Well, I don't remember. I shouldn't say running. Maybe that was the wrong phrase. I don't think it ran. It's just, I think. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't they take some features out of it too, or something? It's been so long.
Some of the stuff back then, you were adding. Unfortunately, you were adding some issues with porting different frameworks. So with KDE 4 to Plasma 5, there was an issue of not all applications were being ported quickly, and not all integrations and plugins and applets and everything like that were also being ported as the same rate as the desktop itself. So people noticed that things were not there, but that's mainly because the stuff that was available in KDE 4 hadn't been ported to Framework 5.
And maybe that's what it was. Then maybe because you know how we are, we get impatient. We can't, if it isn't there now, we don't want it, kind of a thing. But I just remember it being very bland looking, which that wasn't, and that's not saying that negatively. It was clean, I guess. Let's put it that way. It was just.
Yeah, I don't really like the default design anyway, but like it's better than 4, I think.
Yeah, so maybe it's worth giving another look.
Disgusting kindergarten combined with gel caps from like medicine combined with brushed metal chrome garbage.
Yeah,
that's what KDE 4 looked like to me.
Yeah, and I always did like KDE, so it's not that I'm anti-KDE by any means. I don't want it to sound that way. It's like when they did that update, I just I never went back and took another look at it, which maybe it's worth taking another look. And I do like this. I probably won't change from this right now, but maybe I'll just play with it in a virtual box for a while. And
the issue is with Mint is that Mint is like this hodgepodge of crap. Yeah. So
don't sugarcoat it, man. Tell us how you really feel. I mean,
oh, okay. I'm sorry. Well, unfortunately, these things are not at the par that I appreciate. So, like the fact that the KDE packages are not made by Mint in most cases, they're actually from the Kubuntu backports PPA. So they're not even really doing anything, and the fact that they're doing that, and also that the PPAs are on a stack that are Kubuntu-based stack, and Mint is using them on a different stack that they have their own builds that are not really compatible, which creates this weird limbo of things that shouldn't be done. You know how, like, in most cases, Debian is the main foundation and core of packages. And then people put it in Debian, then they pull it up into Ubuntu, they pull it up into where some other derivative, and all the packages are pretty much the same and they work together. That's the way to make sure that there's no excessive work being done. And Mint just ignores all that and does it themselves. And because they do that, they don't do it the same way, and they don't do it accurately, and it makes this weird broken thing. And then they use a PPA from a different project for no reason. Like, it's just not. I don't think anyone should ever use Mint KDE, Mint XFCE ever, because those are two DEs that are really irrelevant to Mint, and they don't care about it, and that's why it takes them an extra month to always release those.
But they work really well. I'm on Mint XFCE now, and there's nothing wrong with it. From a basic user point of view, you load it up, it works.
But you can say that about most distros. Like, a basic user point of view, as long as it works, it works. I don't.
Yeah.
Like,
we're not going under the hood to the level that you are. Yeah, I don't go and look at the code and wonder why he's getting something from this PPA and something from, because that's the whole premise under which Peppermint is built. Started with Ubuntu, then they added a bit of this and that and the other, and we nick stuff from everywhere now and just make it gel and work in Peppermint. So just because it's a hodgepodge underneath, as long as it's a bit like the Swan, yeah, it looks all nice and elegant, and the feet are running like the Billio. As long as you don't notice it on the top, for the average user, that we're not really fussed, which is why it's interesting to get your take on it, because you can go underneath, you can get under the skin of it and let us know the details.
So what's a clean distro then has a nice engine under the hood, you would say?
All of the Ubuntu flavors, they're all fine. Debian itself is fine. Solid XK is fine. They are based on a really old version of Debian, so that's not be bad for some people, but overall they do it well. Let's see.
So which KDE would you run, Michael?
My preference is KDE Neon, but but that's just for me. Like, what I use is not what I suggest people use, because KDE Neon is more like a test bed thing. It's not like beta or whatever, but it's a situation where they don't put anything in the system that isn't necessary. So, like, you're not going to get LibreOffice, you're not going to get, media players and music players and all this other stuff. It's
pretty sparse. I would have to agree. That's why I kind of like it too, in a way. I'm not sure if it's exactly for newbies, but it is sparse, lightweight, then you can add what you want to.
Yeah, it's for if they already know what they want. For brand new to Linux, not really, no.
For brand new, maybe Kubuntu.
Kubuntu is probably the closest.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
KDE Neon.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Colin.
Oh, I was saying there's no KDE, there's no K-Wallet in KDE Neon, which is good. That's a bonus.
There is a K-Wallet.
Is there in KDE Neon? Oh, I don't remember seeing it.
I agree with that, because when you think about Linux Lite, much like Peppermint is really kind of evolved to a point where it's got more in it now, and it does a little bit more, out of the box, where Linux Lite is kind of like that, where you got to go in and, it's a light, it's just what it is. It's a light running distro, but if you want LibreOffice, you want other things, you have to add them in there. And you're right. I think for somebody who's just making a transition, who has no idea, and they want something that's got that stuff in there, then yes, then that wouldn't be the way to go. But the other side of the coin, though, is that wouldn't be a bad way for somebody to learn either. If they had, if they watched videos or shows like this or whatever, that they can pick up and say, well, hey, this is how I install a program, and go in and start learning that way. That's not necessarily a bad thing. But I do agree with, if somebody wants to just get in there and not have to think about that stuff, then yes, it's probably not the one out of the gate to do that.
Netrunner's got a good KDE desktop. Nice looking.
Yeah.
Well, the one thing that I was disappointed with Linux Mint KDE was that they don't do any customizations to it, like they do to every other version of their.
I haven't looked at it.
They don't make the package.
Yeah, but for every other environment, they add their own themes, they add their own icons, they add their own little features to it, and it's not present in the KDE version.
Oh, look, it's Linux Mint Mate for the win. Come on.
You could customize Mint KDE to a point. You'd have to go in, and a lot of times it was either third party or there was some customization in there, but you're right, it's not as much as the other flavors they have out there. And that's probably one of the reasons why I like Mate on here so much, because it actually, have you even looked at that, Michael? Have you looked at Linux Mint Mate at all?
Mm-hmm. And I don't like it because it has the Mint part.
Okay. Fair enough. Yeah. I mean,
I have no problem. I actually do like Mate, and I work on it. I submit patches and stuff, and I work on a bunch of Mate with graphics contributions and stuff like that.
It's good. It's good. Ubuntu Mate is my Linux gold standard for beginners.
Ubuntu Mate also has the interface switcher, and it has the new version, the latest Alpha 2 has that global menu and the HUD and all that stuff. So if my community, and the best part about it, the HUD and the global menu. Mainly I haven't tested the HUD, but the global menu, I haven't tested it for this particular thing I'm about to say, but the global menu for sure. If you go to like the GNOME people who are making a global menu, and you go to the KDE global menu, they all have something like really obviously broken. For example, in KDE, GTK apps don't work that well. They're inconsistent, and sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. In the GNOME version, CSD when applications don't work at all. But in the Ubuntu Mate version, they all work.
But Mate's been getting a little bit system heavy in the last year or so.
It doesn't have a choice.
Because it's building more features on, and because it's gone GTK3. Is that the main reasons, or?
Yeah. It has no choice. Either it goes to GTK3 or it dies. That's the only option. Right. So it has to go to GTK3. It has to implement some things, and in some cases, it has to kind of emulate GNOME in a way, because GNOME doesn't care about anybody but GNOME. So if you look at the GTK toolkit, and you'll look at the things, and it says, if you look at the desktop environment parts of GTK, there are parts where it depends and hard codes look for GNOME. Not anything else, just GNOME. So if you look at Budgie's code, for example, Solus has if you look at Solus Budgie, the code pretends to be GNOME because you can't get away from that, because GTK looks for GNOME. So in certain cases, it's not Budgie, it's fake GNOME, because there's no other option. And that's why Ike said, well, screw that, I'm just going to go to Qt.
I'm going to Qt, yeah.
So, and there's certain cases where Mate has to do it as well, but not as to that degree. But they still have to do it in certain cases because it's a mess, honestly. And the funny thing is, GTK is dying out quick. If Ubuntu hadn't jumped to GNOME, it would last them another 5 more years, because GNOME is just making it more and more isolated to GNOME.
So Ubuntu Mate I would have never left that if it wasn't that it had a menu glitch, and we were talking about that before this started. Rockwell knows what I'm talking about, because he had experienced the same thing when you try to change the menu over from your default. It would go right back to it. It's like it wouldn't save it. And whether you're going to, and Brisk still wasn't really completely in place yet, but there was another menu too. I can't think of it. We were talking about this earlier. It wasn't just Brisk. There was another menu that they had in there you could put in, and it's escaping me now.
The Mate menu.
No, there was another one. It looked more.
Are you talking about in Mint?
No, in Ubuntu Mate. Remember, it was like 1704. Or I think it was maybe in the 16 series. You had done a video on it too. It was the same thing. You experienced the same thing where you wanted to do a menu change and it wouldn't save it. It kept kicking it back. I can't remember which menu it was now. Because Brisk wasn't quite in place yet. They were playing with it, but it wasn't quite in place yet. In any event, it didn't matter. But it was a menu glitch, and I know if you go back and look through your videos, you'll see it. It was when you did the reviews of it.
Are you talking about the one that looks like the Mint one?
The advanced menu?
Yeah. They call it the advanced menu.
That's it.
Yeah.
It's
the Mint menu or the advanced
it's listed
menu.
in the tweak tool. The actual name of the package is Mate menu. Why? Because the real name of the package is Mint menu. It's a forked version of Mint menu with a lot of the clunky crap removed. Like if you look at the source code between the two, Mate menu is like way cleaner and much smaller.
Yeah.
And has a lot of bugs fixes. Like I hope they picks it up. Do it. But yeah, they're getting rid of the Mate menu because it was a stopgap.
Okay.
So the Brisk is going to completely replace it, which is good because it's actually a good menu.
I like Brisk. It's an awesome menu.
Yeah.
And then did they correct the issues with Brisk too by now? I would hope that.
Well, I mean,
it would install a program and it wouldn't save it in the menu full tree. That was early on.
I mean, they're working on it all the time. Ike's working on it all the time.
Yeah, he does a nice job.
Yeah, it's gonna get better and better, and it's really cool that they're doing this collaboration to make. The funny thing is that Mate, the Solus was not meant to ever do other DEs. That's what Ike said, and then Martin hired him to build Brisk on behalf of Ubuntu Mate, and then so he made the Mate version of Solus in order to test the Brisk menu, and then all of a sudden people started wanting the Mate version. He's like, well, okay, and now there's like 4 different versions of Solus, so that's pretty fun.
Rocco at Twitch and that itch is starting. I don't know. I might be hopping.
No, I'm telling you, I'm either going to Ubuntu Budgie or some form of KDE, and I'm just so torn.
I tried Revenge OS this week with Mate. It was good. It wasn't bad.
Netrunner. Try the rolling or the Debian version. Netrunner KDE is good.
That's what I tried last week. It's good. Yeah. Out of the box, it's good.
Have y'all tried Nitrix?
No.
It's a. Go ahead.
Isn't that like Nitrix? Isn't that KDE with a bit of a twist?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I tried it in a VirtualBox.
I wouldn't suggest people jump to it. I mean, it's worth trying, but I wouldn't say it's a daily driver yet. But no. It's interesting. They've got some cool customizations.
Oh, there's something new called Shark OS I saw tonight.
What the heck is that?
Look it up.
I
was on a live stream tonight at 8 p.m. and I just dabbled in some news and Shark OS. So what's next? Octopus OS?
If you open up Shark OS in a VirtualBox, it has got the most obnoxious theming I have ever seen. We are talking dark muted colors that you can't see with neon splashes in the middle of it. So the menu just looks like some Chinese takeaway outside in the middle of Broadway or something. It's just woeful. Absolutely woeful. How they can put out a distro with that as a default.
I guess it gives Sharks a bad name. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now. Oh my gosh.
So it's something fairly new, right?
It's colorful.
It's not the prettiest thing I've seen. I don't know. Maybe I can see. I would love to try Chaos again. KOS. That was pretty nice. But
I love
that. Then again,
Chaos.
You can't get every program you want on that. So
yeah, they're very restrictive in what they put in their repositories, aren't they?
So is Solus.
And Chakra.
That's what I don't have it, yeah.
Carmine Pizza OS.
Pizza. See what I'm saying? You gotta have Pizza OS and you got the pepperoni and the anchovies and
Solus has got a lot better in the last 6 months.
They've added more in the repo. I have noticed that, but what did I test 2 weeks ago? And Tergos Mate, I was impressed with that also for beginners.
What?
Yes. Yes, I did.
All right, you need to stand. You get out. Get away. Go away. Why are you saying they're good for beginners?
I remember. I mean, it's been over 2 weeks now, but I remember that the installer was easy, And I remember that it had different desktop environments to choose from with explanations. Sometimes, say a newbie or a beginner or like a newbie will see that and like, okay, what's Mate? What's GNOME? What's that? With this one actually had a description. That's why I say a little bit easier. Maybe not for newbies, but for beginners. I would say beginners one step above a newbie. I think Antergos was okay.
Here it comes. Everybody's got an opinion. Michael's about to give you yours.
No, I don't think the word beginner does not apply. People should not try to redefine beginner. Everyone knows. Everyone who's not another thing to do with Linux and they're coming from Windows, they believe themselves to be beginners. Period. There is no like weird tiering system. And that's also why I think Spatry's video about the top 3 or the top 5 beginner distros is absurd. Saying Manjaro is the #1 beginner, because also in his description it was like beginner video. In my opinion, a beginner is an intermediate user. Like that's not a beginner. And it's the same thing. A beginner is someone who is brand new to Linux. That's it. And anything based on Arch, they should not touch ever. If once they become not beginners, then go to Arch. And Antergos is a great stepping stone to do that. It's just should not be for beginners.
Falls over too easily for a beginner.
Yeah, and even if it doesn't, like there are certain things that will break or certain things that just won't run. Like for example, I want to use TeamViewer. Well, if you install TeamViewer and you don't set up the system service, it won't run. But it doesn't tell you that.
But it does though. It says TeamViewer won't start because you haven't run TeamViewer minus or
right. If you use the AOR version, if you use AOR version, what if you go in? What if you're like a brand new to Linux and you don't do that? And you don't even use the AOR. You go to their website and you download their dev file, which also can be.
But you just said it brand new as in newbie.
Right. You shouldn't be on Antergos. Exactly. That's the point.
I define newbie, beginner, and then everybody else. Newbie is the lowest of the. I shouldn't say lowest.
Right there. Yeah.
Hey, how's the weather, guys?
Getting stormy in here.
I'll say.
Weather's good. See what I'm saying?
I'm just curious. Like when someone's brand new to something, they are in the beginning stages. So like, where is the difference? Like.
Well, because I think you have some people using Linux just as a point and click, like you do in Windows, and they will be running Linux for a while. They may come across the odd problem that they may search to fix or whatever, but they actually increase themselves from an absolute beginner to someone who's a little bit of a seasoned user.
Right. They're not beginners and they're not newbies. So that
I think we're just talking about semantics, though. I mean,
no, it's important because people use that word. It's like the same thing. Like if I'm arguing, like, okay, so I don't remember. I can't even point because everybody has a different example. But let's say.
Okay, so Joe is up top.
Joe. Okay, it's
Zeb.
Joe. Okay, Joe. Yeah, Joe's. I remember Zed because that's. I assume because of the accent and the Zed part is like totally got it. So Joe said that he's saying mate all the time, and at no point have I cared about mentioning that's not right. Mate. So it's not. That's a pedantic, semantic, wasteful argument.
Tomato. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And I'm not bothered. I didn't bring it up because of that. But the point is like when it's not relevant, I'm just gonna ignore it. Like when someone says KDE instead of KDE Plasma, I don't care. But when someone says beginner and they don't really mean beginner, that's problematic. Especially if it's in videos that people are watching and tutorials that people are reading and seeing things that referring to something that's not really that they think is what they are, but they're not. And that creates this huge just breaking point. Yeah. And I've had people come into like even today I helped somebody on a forum install something with Linux Mint, and they were saying it was super complicated. What they were doing was kind of complicated, but if I had given them Arch to look at, their brains would have exploded. Like there's just way too much. So like I don't think anyone should ever suggest Arch to a new person, beginner, whatever, however you, even if they're in different levels to you, you still shouldn't do it. like it's like, for example, when you go to a job experience, like a job or application, it'll say, you have no experience, some experience, and are an expert or whatever. You can just say that if you have some experience with Linux, try out Antergos, try out Arch or whatever. That's perfectly fine. It's just that beginner word, while is pedantic, is also what people expect to see.
And you know,
it's like one of the most popular words to describe it.
How you talk about mate or mate, and I know that Carmine's talked about it in his videos where I always used to say mate, but then I got tired of being corrected, so now I just got myself in the habit, and that's what it's become, as a habit.
I don't get picky. Martin Wimpress I spoke to on a podcast last year before. He doesn't really, you know. I mean, if you want to get technical, it's
now he'll say he does care.
Right,
okay, well,
yeah, he'll say
I personally don't. Okay, of course, because even I'll say mate sometimes, but I'll get corrected on my own channel. It's mate. I'm like, yes, I know what it is.
And that's
okay, it's not gnome, it's a good gnome.
Right. Can I suggest something that bring up
weird names? They always say, why do they pick such weird names, even for their software and everything else? Well, that, if you notice, that's changing now too. Instead of calculator, they've got calculator finally, and that, you know, I mean, so
no, they don't.
What?
Their label is changed. GNOME Web, the real application.
Look at the file itself. It has
files is Nautilus still. Like, they never changed it. It's just the labels changed, which is not helpful, because when someone goes to they go to search for their stuff, and they go into the GNOME search menu and they see web and that's their browser. Go on Google and search for anything to help with web.
Right.
Good luck with that. Or even Linux web. Good luck with that. Even if you know that it's GNOME, you're still gonna have some weird issues, because GNOME and web is where one is super generic and the other one is, somewhat related, and it's not gonna help you. So like, you can search any of these variations, and if you searched Epiphany, done.
Yeah.
That's why it's not even a good idea that they're doing that.
Yeah.
Well, I'll sleep better tonight.
I don't think it matters how much you've done in the Ubuntu-based world. You could have done just about everything, and maybe on Gentoo or any other based distro. But if you go to Arch, you got to be a beginner, and you'll be treated as such pretty much, from what I've seen.
I try to make it clear, at least on my channel, maybe not the whole scheme of things. Newbie, like, okay, 2006, I picked up a magazine, Popular Mechanics, Science, I don't remember. If you're tired of Windows XP, try Ubuntu. What's Ubuntu? That's what it is. So my very first try at anything in Linux, I was a newbie. Now, yes, you can say newbie, probably interchange that with beginner. But for me, on my channel, I try to make it clear, newbie is the way at the bottom. And then beginner right there at the top. But I see your point but at least I try to make it clear, what do I mean? But in general, you're right. You don't want to recommend Arch-based for newbies/beginners in general. Now, if someone has messed around, say, with Linux a couple of months, 6 months, and is still considered a beginner, I would say try Antergos. Once you know how Linux works, maybe look at the forums, maybe have a spare machine in case you break something. But I just found Antergos, with my eyes at least, to be a little bit more user-friendly. In terms of explanation of what the different DEs were and how it works. Maybe I should have used the word user-friendly versus, newbie or beginner.
Well, I mean, it's just I wasn't trying to attack you for saying it.
No. You make a valid point, but at least on my channel, I try to distinguish that. At least in my mind, and newbie is you start at 0, not even 1, and beginner you start at 1. Is there much of a difference? No. But sometimes I'll say I found this OS, this distribution to be more user friendly, and I won't even use like newbie or beginner. But because my channel, I try to make it more for beginner/newbies, not all the time, but sometimes just to avoid confusion, I'll say, well, Antergos I think is more user friendly if you mess with Linux before or have some knowledge. But then I'll get a question, what about for beginners or for newbies? Well, then, you got to try your Zorins, your Linux Smiths, Ubuntu Mate. But even then, someone should at least do some reading. I mean, I did a lot. Lot of reading when I started off, a lot of reading. And I learned pretty much self-learn by myself, trial and error, different. God, I had a stack of bootable CDs back, but it takes a lot of patience, But really, if you were to take all the distros and all the forks out there, which are hundreds, maybe thousands by now, maybe not thousands, and you could probably choose in one hand what's really good for newbie / beginners, maybe 5, maybe. I don't know.
But Rocco was right though. It's all semantic. It depends upon your description of what those words are. Because even though I've been using Linux since 2009, I still class myself as a beginner because I don't understand what goes on underneath.
Right.
If
that's
people can have a conversation and they'll talk about Xorg file is kept in /etc/ /x11. No, wait a minute, it's capital X11. I don't understand all that sort of stuff. So for me, I'm still a beginner. But other people I know say, wow, they're really good at Linux.
Right. And in some ways, I'm still a beginner because I don't understand everything. And the reason why is I don't understand everything because I dual boot. If all I did was Linux, say from 2006, I dumped Windows, then I would probably consider myself more advanced user. Because I dual boot, then I try to solve some issues in Windows or versus, when you stick to one thing, well, of course you're going to be more of a master at that craft, at that type of system. I guess it's human nature. But, in the past, not so much now, but in the past when I was trying to compare Linux with Windows and pros and cons, I would get, well, Linux sucks, Windows sucks. Well, you can't just arbitrarily say it sucks and not explain yourself. Like if somebody said, dude, why do you use Linux? Well, have you tried Linux? Yes. Which one? Which distribution?
But see, that still comes back to, too, it's not just about the distributions either. It comes back to the machine you're running, too. Because all people say is, they'll run great on older hardware. You know yourself, you try putting a heavier resourced distro on a 8 or 9 or 10-year-old PC. Or you get something so old. I mean, I mentioned it on your show in the chat the other night, too, when you're talking about Puppy Linux. Well, I gave the example of I had a 12-year-old laptop just to show people to run. I took the hard drive was out of it, and it ran in the RAM.
In RAM, yeah.
So it depends on what machine you're running, too, which will also help dictate what distro you're going to run. I would think you would agree with that. And Peppermint is a pretty formidable or Linux Lite or something
in general, like that. I tend to either recommend, suggest, talk about what I've used. Now, obviously, when you run inside a virtual machine, it's not the same as a full install test. It's not. Like last year, I tried Manjaro with a full install in one of my ThinkPads. It ran great in the beginning. As time went on, it got screwy. I got tired of searching for solving puzzles, so I gave up. That's me. But that's the only true test is a full install running for at least a month and start installing stuff. But I knew I was in trouble with Manjaro. Out of the box, I couldn't play a CD. It's Patrick says, well, who plays CDs anymore? Well, that's not the point. I mean, I got it working,
But even in a virtual box, Carmen, don't you think, I mean, I noticed it with this between some of the other machines I've loaded distros on, your hardware still does affect how well your virtual box runs too.
It is an indication. It is an indicator.
I agree with you. It's still not a true representation. No. It will draw from the resources.
Chances are, if it's going to work in a virtual machine, and I love virtual machine friendly OSs, like Antergos and Revenge OS, it worked out of the box, full screen, ready to go. That's not always the case. So I really enjoy that part. But you're right. And some say, well, have you tried VM Player versus VirtualBox? Yes, I have. But it's not the same as a full install, But yes, if it's going to install beautifully and run in a virtual machine, chances are a full install. But a full install test is always going to be better in the end than a virtual environment, in my opinion. So
sure, absolutely.
Yep.
Can't really argue.
The problem you'll have when you go to the problem you'll have when you go to a full test is it's normally your graphics card that lets you down, because most of them will run in a virtual machine.
Yeah. I remember when Ubuntu 16.04 came out. I installed it in 2 machines. I'm like, wow, this is really awesome. No issues, smooth. I had some of my friends, what are you talking about? This sucks. It didn't work on this machine, on that machine. Again, that's the nature of a Linux desktop. It's unpredictable. But I can only go by my test on my specific machines. Now, it's certainly possible. I'll say the new ABC Linux is the best thing since Windows 7 or whatever. Then the guy installs it on his 3-year-old machine, and it won't boot. It sucks. Well, maybe in your case it did, but I don't like it when people say, well, Linux sucks, and just leave that. Well, what? What didn't work for you? The video drivers? Okay, well, that's a hit and miss. Gaming? Okay, well, that's hit and miss. But if you don't game, and all you want to do is get on the web and feel a little bit more secure than Windows, I think Linux is great. But I think in this situation, at least for beginners, you got to be upfront with them and say, hey, what works perfect for me may not work perfect, and it may not be anything that you've done. It's just the hardware and the software, that marriage doesn't work for whatever reason. It's nobody's fault in general. It's possible, but more so than not, chances are most of it will work.
If you like it, put a ring on it.
Now, if somebody says, what about gaming? You got to go with Windows. Now this may change in 10 years, but I don't do a lot of gaming in general. But if I do game, it's usually Windows or my Xbox, But I've taken, I've taken a lot of flack over the years. Well, how can you do Linux when Windows is the best? Best at gaming? Yes, absolutely. Is it better in general than Linux? Not necessarily. I feel more secure using Linux than I do Windows 10, even though I think Windows 10 is secure. Assuming it's not a pirated copy and all that crap. But I generally feel more secure. Yeah, I generally feel more secure in Linux. Doesn't mean you don't get hit in Linux. You can't get hacked. You can't get ransomware. It's certainly possible. But in general, today, this Friday, July 29, 2017.
Very improbable.
I feel more secure in Linux, yes. I usually do my banking in Linux than I do Windows 10. Although I do think in general, Windows 10, with all the updates, is secure.
And the privacy violations.
Well, again, now we're talking 2 different things. Once you get on the web, forget about privacy.
Yeah, here we go.
Once you get on Windows 10, forget about privacy.
Well, that too. But once you really get on the web, I don't care what you use, Linux or,
Oh, that's true for Windows 7 and 8 now too, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I don't put security and privacy necessarily in the same box nowadays, but
it's just easy to jab because they made a decent upgrade to 7 and 8, and then they ruin it by making all the
politics of it. I mean, the technical aspects is fine. And somebody mentioned they stole it off of KDE or something. No, I think KDE still stole it off of Windows, but.
Well, no,
because they started it years before, so definitely not.
Okay.
The Tiles menu looks a lot like Kubuntu. That's the KDE Ubuntu. So I mean, that's where I said that before with Windows 10, because you didn't see that before in any of the other ones. And Kubuntu was around
the taskbar. They started doing that styling in 2014, which is like a year before Windows 10. So there's no way for KDE to have copied that because it wasn't even out yet. But it's also possible that they just thought of the same thing. It's not that creative to do a flat theme, but that bottom bar with a single color and some accents. It's not that creative. It looks good, but it's not creative. Of course, you also don't really want your system to be the super creative muted thing with neon colors, do you?
I'm not into the customization looks that much, in general. Some of my subscribers, Windows, you can't theme it or customize it. Yeah, and so, but it works. You can have all the flashiest colors you want, but if you can't play your game because of the video drivers, yeah, take your colors to the bank and see what happens, But that's my thing about theming and customizations, and
I don't care about customizing Windows either. I have a Windows 10 setup that I use specifically to play one video game.
Okay.
And
no, you don't.
Well, I do. As of,
Rocket League?
No, Rocket League works on that. It's Player Unknown's Battlegrounds. Anyway, and it's also buggy as crap. The game and Windows, but I don't even care about changing the wallpaper. Like I don't care at all. So
I have the same. Sometimes I have a toss today wallpaper as a reminder, like anybody passing by the channel. But to be honest, if I had to pick a wall, I like the nice default Windows wallpapers versus mine. I'd be quite honest, but just have it on there. Total OS today for beginners and and advanced users or whatever, for beginners and beyond. But yeah, it's not that big of a deal. I just want it to work. Like in Windows, I want it to work without any malware, and I keep my machine clean, as clean as possible.
You're being meticulous about that.
Isn't that what makes Elementary look so good? Is a nice wallpaper anyway? I mean, everyone says
part of it.
Looking desktop, right?
Elementary is nice.
It's no different than anything else. It's got the what do you call the transparency up the top and all that, and everyone says it's a nice looking distro, but I think it's the wallpaper that makes it look nice, surely.
Well, I mean, it's a cohesive effort is what makes it look good.
Yeah.
Like the wallpaper's nice. If you have a nice, clean layout of the panels and the menus and the dock, and then you have a hideous wallpaper, it's going to ruin the appeal.
There's one OS. I don't know if they still make it. Is it Ultimate Edition? There's like 64 million wallpapers. You know which one I mean, right?
I think they stopped.
I think it's Ultimate, right? And it's 65 million themes.
So you go Ultimate,
and every single piece of Linux app invented under the universe is on there. So I installed, going through this. I'm like, okay, delete. What the heck,
That's a bit like PC Linux OS Full Edition.
The full Monty.
The full Monty, yeah.
That was better. They don't
you
make
start
it
up,
anymore.
and they've given you 6 defined desktops. This is for your writing. That's for your gaming. That's for something else. That's
Maybe
for
if you're a beginner,
browsing.
no way you could choose the ones that you want or delete. But I think it's a bit much. Yeah,
it is over the top.
I use 6 virtual desktops, but as a beginner, that would be kind of crazy.
I've never used.
Well, wait. What do you mean by beginner?
Well, dude, I would say starting at 1.
Sorry. Sorry.
That killed that convo, didn't it?
I just thought I'd throw that in there.
Why do you use 6?
There's something wrong with him. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, there probably is.
Well, there is, but we're
you really have 6? Wow.
Yeah, 6. Actually, I have technically, if you want to count it, I have 2 monitors, so you could say there's 12 in a way.
12.
They're all particular reasons. So like this conversation is happening on one specific desktop, and it's always on the same one. And it's I have a communications desktop, which is like Discord, Mumble, this chat thing, like my IRC clients, Slack and Matrix, Mattermost, all that stuff is all in the same desktop, and they're all tiled against each other. So
how does that work when you're playing a game and you don't look at Discord, or you have to switch desktops to look at Discord? Or
I put Discord on one monitor because it's going to take over the whole monitor. So I just have Discord on the same. I put the game on the same desktop, but that's because it's temporary anyway, and I just need Discord.
Right.
So and Mumble at the same time, and I put them side by side.
Well, I have 2 desktops. I have the Linux Mint desktop environment that I installed the KDE just to have different looks. But that's as far as I go. I have 2. I just log in and out. Keep it simple.
Well, I mean,
yeah.
When you say I'm saying virtual desktop.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, not necessarily having 2 different DEs and stuff.
Sorry. Okay. All right.
So one monitor.
Never...
It's like having 6 monitors. Yeah.
Yeah, I've never had I've never had anybody explain it to me in a way that made me think that I could use or would need to use different virtual desktops. Like you just explained what you use it for, but to me that's like I don't know.
Quick jumps. Like, okay, for example, you have a bunch of if you use a lot of applications, then that's the issue. If you don't, then it doesn't really matter. But like I have like 20 applications running right now. And they're all for different tasks, and they're all different locations.
Why?
Multitasking.
Okay.
Yeah, like that's
I can only do. Look, man, I can concentrate on one, maybe 2 things at a time.
Well, one task would be typing. Second task.
Yeah, I mean, like I don't know if I could handle having 20 applications open at one time. I don't know how I would interact with all of them. But anyway, go ahead.
I think he's suggesting 420 applications.
Yeah, I know he is, but. I skipped over that. I just bypassed.
I know, but you said 20 and it was perfect. I had to. But so like for example,
between them, do you use the cube or do you just they just flip past?
I create custom shortcuts. So I want to go to the first desktop. I do Super 1, and that's it, and then 1 through 6. So Super 1 through 6, and then I just jumped right to it, and I have my programming, all my programming stuff, or my like SSH setups, and my FTP if I ever use it, my text editor, all that stuff, and that's all done in like its own specific desktop. Then I have like my browser on another desktop, and then I have my virtual environment stuff on another desktop. Then I have another desktop for music and multimedia stuff, and then another desktop that's just whatever.
Sounds like the bridge of the Starship Enterprise. Cool, man.
Yeah, I mean, I could set all that up.
I have had wild cars before, but not right now.
That looks pretty slick, doesn't it? I tried it once, but I couldn't quite get it. Looks slick, but I couldn't quite get used to it. Yeah.
I'd be on desktop 1, and my browser's on desktop 3, so I'd forget about it. So on desktop 1, I'd open my browser.
Well, I mean, the main thing is I set it up so like, well, because I use Plasma for a reason. And it's because I can control it exactly where every program like loads, as far as the desktop, the monitor, the width and height of the window, the whether it's maximized or not maximized, whether it's tiled against another window, whether it has a border or the border's removed, and I can control all of this and like completely permanently and say, remember this window the way I just made it, and then it'll just remember it the next time I open it. So I just set them all up so that they're always in the same place, no matter what. And if I say, oh, do I have Firefox open? I can just like start to open Firefox, and it'll just move me to the desktop that it's on.
So you have it set up to where if you went to open a Firefox window, it wouldn't open on that desktop. It would open on the other one.
No, it would just take you to the main instance.
It would take you to
Yeah. So if I can create a new instance if I want to, but typically I don't make multiple instances unless it's like a file manager or something. So with a file manager, I would make multiple instances, but I don't have that. My file manager doesn't have any kind of like specific opening. That's like one of the few universal things that I'll open randomly.
I just think with that many applications open, I just have to close them because like I would not remember what workspace has which programs on it. So, well, I mean, if I open activities in Gnome and I have more than like 4, I gotta close some because it's too much.
But you can have previews in the taskbar too, can you? If you had your taskbar a little more enlarged, you could see the previews of each workspace too, if you want.
Well, not in Gnome, but
yeah.
I mean, you could do it in Plasma. I don't do that because my interface is very custom, so like I don't have a taskbar.
It would be cool if your wall was your monitor, like right here. That way, okay, I could talk to Rocco here, somebody here, and I could have like 25 that's virtual. Just turn my.
I've actually done that before. That's my projector.
See, I wasn't too far off. See, so I could turn this way. Like when I do a live stream, I could.
My monitor is my wall now.
Yeah, and then,
I actually have it. So I have I have a sit-stand desk so that I can make the desk go lower so the projector hits right above it.
Ah, okay, all right. So I'll say I wasn't too far off. See.
Well, I mean, I don't do it that much. That's why it's shooting that way.
Those sit-stand desks are supposed to be really good for you.
Oh, it's awesome. Like this particular desk is awesome, and I would tell you about it, but I need to get an affiliate code before you go buy it. But I'm just kidding. It's actually ridiculously featureful. Being pretty cheap. It's Autonomous is the name of the company.
Right.
It's like by the first lowest tier desk is like $300, and it has a full featured sit stand feature with a motor, and it also has presets that you can make, like 4 presets. So if you go to like the Updesk or any of the other main brands that started this thing or started the fad of getting these like expensive desks, they start at like $800 with a crank.
Wow.
Yeah. If you get the same thing that this has from Updesk, it's like $1,200, $1,400 around there.
Do these guys ship to the UK?
I'm pretty sure, yeah. I think
for a price, they'll do anything.
I think they have a fulfillment center in the UK.
Smart Desk 2, $299. Everything I've looked at before has been like $650, $700.
You know, to me, a desk is I would spend that kind of money in a nice, comfy chair because I'm 6'2", you know, to fit right. I would spend that kind of money in a chair and a desk. I don't know.
Yeah, well, no, it's actually better. You're 6'2" and thin. I'm 6'2" and large.
Mm-hmm. I'm 6'4", and let's not talk about it.
But, welcome to Tall OS. Yes.
So
I still haven't come across a monitor or a monitor support in any of the distros that works 100% well. You know, for me, I've got this set up the way I want. I've got 3 monitors, but the minute you want to save something to the desktop, it always defaults over to this one, even though I've got my center monitor as what's supposed to be my proprietary or default monitor. It always wants to go to the one off to the left. And
yeah, but I notice XFCE does that for me even to this day. Just exactly what you're talking about. You can make it the default display. You can do everything in NVIDIA settings or the XFCE settings, and it still wants to put it over on the left monitor for whatever reason.
And I don't like stuff on my desktop, icon stuff, but when I do have certain things up there that I need to remember, I like them straight in front of me. And as soon as you were to do a refresh on the monitor, it'll drop them all over to this side, and you got to drag them back. And I thought, well, maybe
it sounds like you need KDE, where you can specifically tell it where to go and stay there.
Yes.
Well, and I will try that to see if it does it. I might try it in a different setting because this.
It's called window rules.
The thing is, I've done this. I've gone in and I've set it like Rocco just said. I've gone into the NVIDIA settings. I've gone into the settings that they have. I've tried everything, and I've told it as absolute, set them as absolute, everything else, and it's still it always wants to drop stuff when you save, especially if you got a window open here. Like a lot of times, if I'm watching a video, I have this open on this screen because that's where my camera is. But anytime I'm usually watching a video, it's always on the left, and I have these other two screens working. And yet, as soon as I want to save something, I always have to move what's going on behind here if it's full screen because I have to see.
I see the shirt now, but 6'4" my foot.
You're muted, dude. You're still muted.
Yeah. There we go. There we go.
On this autonomous smart desk, cool shirt. What is an anti-fatigue mat?
It's actually useful. It's a thing that you... hold on.
It's a rubber mat that
he's got one. He's got one. Okay.
Static.
What it does is it allows you to, like, if you're standing in a spot without any kind of cushion for any long amount of time, your feet are just gonna start to hurt. So this just kind of like gives you a little bit of cushion so that doesn't happen.
Right.
So it's like an insole for your shoe.
Yeah,
it's a mat.
Some are better than others.
It's a mat you stand on.
A little bit heavy, yeah.
I wouldn't buy theirs because you can get a probably better one from Amazon.
I was going to say I'd just get a couple of bits of carpet liner and stand on them instead. They're nice and fluffy.
Not the same thing. Not the same.
It's not the same because the
density is different.
Yeah, it feels like I have a mat. I got a mat from Harbor Freight. It's not the best, obviously, but it's better than not having one.
I would just buy a couple bags of marshmallows, tape them together, man. There you go.
That's a good one.
Actually, if you went to like a restaurant supply or something like that, they have anti-fatigue mats for people that are on their feet for hours. You know, if they're washing or whatever, those are built differently. They're a little more like we have a place here called Farm and Fleet. It's an implement type store for, because we have a lot of farm community, whatever, and they also have a line of commercial kitchen type things, and anti-fatigue mats are some of them. So, but there is a difference in the quality and the density and how they, it's not the same thing quite as putting an insole in your shoe. It's the same principle behind it, but if you've ever stood in one spot for several hours, you'd see the difference. Yeah. So.
Okay, well, definitely this is my next desk when I replace this one, because this looks super cool. And even the business desk is only $3.99.
Yeah,
I spend that for a desk in Argos. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I've got like 18 feet of desk in here, and I've been considering the idea of going to one of those too, because I've, sitting a long time. You see, I got a pillow back behind my back because I've got spinal issues. I had a surgery a couple of years ago, so standing up would be helpful. And you see more and more people doing that. They actually like work. My sister actually started doing that. She got herself a stand, not the desk, but a stand to stand in front of it. And she stands and she says a lot healthier from her shoulders, not doing this, all of that stuff. So,
Zeb, you want to post a link for that?
Yeah, sure. Just a sec.
Frank's looking for it.
Yeah, they're anonymous.
There you go.
You know what I did? I went to the local Reuse It store and got a $25, $30, I think it was $30 desk. And it works great.
Lightweight bistro, lightweight desk.
There you go. I mean, it's not anything to look at, but it's exactly what I wanted.
Well, there you go.
It's exactly what I wanted.
It all comes down to functionality, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have a keyboard thing. It doesn't have all. It is a flat surface with the, T-frame going down. That's it.
Use the link that I sent because it's got an affiliate on it.
Wow, he wants the affiliate
send it through.
link.
Yeah, why not? If he can earn $50 out of it or whatever.
Figure out which one to use. Okay. I spent probably 2 months trying to find, I went to 30 different desks to see which one I wanted to finally do. I mean, I almost bought an IKEA, and then I found this thing.
Well, that's awesome. I'm going to save your link.
But I got the highest one. It's not even that high. It's like $500. But it's 70 inches by 30 inches, so it's huge, and it's got 2 motors instead of 1 motor.
Mm-hmm.
And
is that the business one?
Yeah, the business one. The reason why I got the 2 motors is because I wanted to go a little taller than the default would.
Mm-hmm.
So the Home Edition only supports or only has the 1 motor?
Yeah, it's 1 motor.
Okay, I got you.
And there's the business edition is 2 motors. And
it goes 4 inches higher by the looks of it. 47.
And also 2 inches lower.
Does it have hyper speed on the door?
It's actually 5 inches lower, believe it or not.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
But it's great because it's really quiet. Like I don't know how quiet it would be next to my microphone, but it's pretty quiet when you're listening to it when you're actually doing it, and it doesn't take very long to go up and down. Like I don't know if you were paying attention when I did it, but it takes maybe 6 seconds to go up and down.
And I didn't even hear you move it.
Yeah, well, technically, I muted the microphone so you wouldn't have it.
Not technically. He muted the microphone.
Yeah.
There's this big V8 truck in the background. And up it goes.
Yes.
Well, it's because I used to have a microphone on the desk, and I did it one time, and people were yelling at me. So,
put a muffler on it, man.
Yeah, I thought about it, but I don't know if I actually.
Now, did you add the accessory kit with the charger and the USB charger and all that?
No, I don't need that. I don't think that's necessary at all. I think that's just like an upsell thing.
But you did need the anti-fatigue mat.
No, I bought that somewhere else. I bought that at Harbor Freight, so I was super cheap on that one. And I should have bought it. I should have bought a better one than this one. It's fine.
Yeah.
But speaking of putting a muffler on it, I had a dream that I was a muffler, and when I woke up pretty exhausted.
That's a
5-minute timeout. Put him in the sin bin.
I got to mute him for 5 minutes.
Put him in the sin bin. Well, I asked Joe a serious question about monitors. You say you got 3 monitors there. Whenever I try and install a new distro with even 2 monitors up and running, the damn thing never even powers up. I always have to disconnect one of the monitors before I can get the live USB to install. What am I doing wrong? What's it doing wrong? I mean, I don't have 2 monitors the same size, by the way. But what's it doing wrong? Why is it not doing it?
You know what? I don't know that I'd have an answer because I've never had that happen. What I have had happen on some of the distros is, and Ubuntu Mate is one of them, where it would give me one wallpaper here, same wallpaper here, and then all of a sudden be a completely different one here, and you'd have to go in and manually change it or whatever, or it would throw things kind of skewed, you know, the way the desktop would normally out, and you have to manually change it. Like this one here, again, I mentioned if you were to do 1, 2, 3, the middle one is my number 1 in my mind because that's where everybody's natural way of looking is straight ahead. But when I first installed this, it always wants to put it on my left one being number 1, and that's the way it finds it. I think it comes down to your video card, potentially. What kind of card do you have? Because my card's older. I've got that GTX 760 in here, and I remember Michael teasing me because I have a 1050 Ti on my other machine that never goes online, but put it in that one. So,
I've got a GTX 960.
Well, see, then you really shouldn't have.
I have the same card, and I don't have
like that. Are you? Is it? See, I have HDMI. I don't believe. I think I've got a DVI and VGA. I didn't use the actual display port that's on there because I could put one more on there. I could actually run 4 monitors off of this.
The main one's off a display port. Then I can have another one off of HDMI and a third one, if I want to, off of the old DVI. But if I put 3 monitors on, they just don't boot up from live.
So the video won't boot up at all?
Nope. I then disconnect the 2 other monitors and up it comes.
Do you have, now let me ask you this, do you have you gone into your BIOS and made sure that your BIOS settings are pointing to your dedicated and not shared? Because a lot, like my motherboard still has onboard graphics, but then I have the dedicated card and I have it shut off to where the onboard card is disabled.
Pure dedicated card, because I used to do a trick on Windows where I could enable my onboard card, and at one time I had 5 monitors hooked up just because I could.
Okay, so
I was using onboard as well as the NVIDIA.
I could.
Yeah, hey, it was an experiment, and I wanted to see, and it looked like some sort of panoramic desktop, but I kept getting a crook in my neck looking over here for this monitor and that one over there. But it only happens on some distros, and it's to do with the Nouveau drivers, I'm sure of it.
I was going to say it's got to be something with the particular distro and how it's set up and the drivers that it's using, because are you using, I'm assuming you're using proprietary drivers because we were talking about them before. So.
No, but this is on a new install live. Once I'm up and running and I've got the Nouveau, the NVIDIA drivers, everything works perfectly, and I know I have to control them and move them left and right. It's just that when you boot up some distros, if I have more than 1 monitor, doesn't want to know.
I think it comes down to the distro support for them then. That's the only thing I can figure, because I have had issues with certain distros that will not run multiple monitors even as well as these are. You'll have a glitch or you'll have something where it just won't recognize all of them or whatever. And I mean, that's the only thing I can figure, because there's no rhyme or reason why it shouldn't, especially with a 960. I mean, mine's 2 generations older than that, and I don't have any problems. I'm not saying I never have. I have had some issues with some distros, and I just gave up. And
it might be because my primary monitor's 4K. I don't know.
That's a possibility. But do you remember what distro you had these problems with? Like, because I have the 962, and I'm just trying to think if I don't remember having those issues, but
I am a member of Distro Hoppers Anonymous, even though
I thought you were cured, man.
Yeah, well, I'm now down to just 5, so, and I haven't hopped in quite a while, so yeah, I'm okay at the moment. But no, I can't remember which one. I think the most prominent one, which surprised me, was Solus.
And it could be because you, like Rocco said, maybe you don't have the 4K support within that distro, because you have to. I do believe you have to have that support within the distros themselves.
But once they're up and running and working, they all work.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's just that initial boot, which is frustrating.
Thing, but it also could be an issue of your 4K with DisplayPort, because DisplayPort is problematic in a lot of cases.
So you think I should change it to HDMI?
if you could try without DisplayPort and see if it still happens, I would be interested in knowing what happens. But I think I've had a point where my monitor, my main one I'm using, is DisplayPort and HDMI, and I had so many problems with DisplayPort that I just gave up, and then I switched to HDMI. Right. No problem whatsoever.
Yeah, because I had to initially set it up.
Of the monitor at all.
Yeah, I initially had to go in and change one of them to 1.2 and the other one to 2.0 or something for it to get 60 hertz. So I know they're set up right, but yeah, I'll give it a whirl on HDMI and see if it cures it. Thank you.
Well, that could be it because I don't have either monitor on a DisplayPort. One is HDMI and one is a DVI to HDMI. So
yeah, the only thing
I've never used my DisplayPort, so that might be why I don't have an indicator of it, because I've never used it in the entire time I've had this card.
DisplayPort is really cool, but problematic.
I've got DisplayPort and HDMI, and I don't have any issues. But like I said before, I'm running Intel, so maybe Intel's just forgiving for everything if it's
Intel stuff in the kernel too. So,
are you running one monitor though, Colin, or are you running multiple?
No, I'm running two. I'm running two now. Yeah, and I've never had any boot issues with anything really, as far as monitors starting up. So, probably Intel.
But yeah, I think DisplayPort is cool conceptually, but every time I've used it, I've regretted it.
So doesn't Apple use a version of that? Apple DisplayPort?
No, I think you're referring to Thunderbolt.
I was going to say that they use Thunderbirds.
Yeah. Okay, all right, Thunderbolt. Yeah. Okay.
Thunderbolt, yeah. Thunderbird sounds much cooler.
Thunderbird. I used to drive a Thunderbird in Florida.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we just recorded Destination Linux, and we talked about USB 3.2, and it's supposed to be doubling the speed of the Generation 2 3.1.
Nice.
So you got to have like specific hardware. You got to have the USB-C connectors, and you got to have the new hardware. So which means you have to buy a new motherboard if you want it, or a PCI Express card. But doubling the speed would be awesome. But it's still a long ways away yet.
Yeah, USB-C is fantastic. Like I've used it and it's awesome. Like it's so fast, and not having to worry about the stupid flip thing is nice. But it's not. It shouldn't be a selling point, but sadly it is. But
yeah,
it is nice to have that.
Yeah.
Lots of the new phones are coming out with Type-C now as well.
Yeah, I got an old HTC, and it's like, oh, I got to flip it in. You know, it's the little things that life.
That was the worst design, thing for any piece of hardware.
Yeah, it should have been reversible from the beginning.
Yes,
and that's why the Lightning plug for Apple is great. You look at
any 4-year-old mobile phone, and the worst place is the insert point.
Yeah.
It's mashed to bits where people have forced it in the wrong way.
I held on to this because this right here, it's got speaker here, and I flip it around, and these speakers are awesome on this
HTC 8
Max. The Max.
Max, is it?
They don't make it anymore, but it's got the best sounding speakers.
I had the HTC 8, and that was really, really good.
I mean, all the HTCs, well, not the new ones, but they had great speakers.
Now, after the M8, they've stopped it.
Then they kind of fade. I'm like, I want to say there's someone said HTC helped this company. Yeah, that's exactly what it sounds for. But
I think it's because the speakers were powered by the Beats by Dre.
Were they? Well, this one is not.
I don't know. HTC's going to have that deal anymore.
No, but most cell phones today, their speakers, I don't care for them.
They're terrible, man. They're terrible. That's where most
even the so-called flagship phones. I mean, put a damn speaker in there, man.
I have a Nexus 6, and it's awful.
Is it awful? Well, no. One of them has the dual. Was that's the 6P maybe with the dual speakers? I can't remember.
Yeah, 6P has that. I have the 6.
Okay, all right.
Not good. It's it's not terrible. It's not the worst. I mean,
okay.
Hey guys, it's a phone.
Yeah,
it's my music player too.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's more than a phone nowadays. It's pretty much a mini computer.
Yeah, but what you've got to worry about is when you put your headphones in, does it sound good then? And have you got a decent...
I'm waiting for the combination phone shaver, you know.
Yeah, but I don't always use headphones though, man. I
don't
actually
use headphones.
rarely use headphones. So
rarely, except for this, or if I'm going for a walk, but I'd rather hear it coming out of the phone. But that's just
Sennheisers, huh?
Yeah, and 26 quid, bargain.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
Good price, mate. Yeah.
Yeah, they must have spelled Sennheiser wrong though, because I'm sure they're not.
So,
right.
Let's talk about the most important thing about phones: accessories.
Yeah.
Yeah, like good speakers, accessories built in the phone, right? Yeah.
So, any of you know what this is?
It's a suction cup.
Not actually a suction cup, but it also does this.
Yeah. What is that for?
Stand your phone up.
It stands. You can hold it. It makes it easier to hold a big phone. So
That's cool. Yeah.
And it also allows you to hold it.
Nice.
Rotate.
Nice.
Set it up on things. It works as a kickstand.
If you were to vlog a lot,
does it easily come off though?
Yeah. It also leaves no residue.
Ah.
Okay.
And it's in some kind of adhesive. I have no idea. It's magic. Magic.
It's magic.
But it doesn't leave it residue. You can see.
Have you got an affiliate link for that?
Actually, no, I do not.
Does it work on any phone?
Literally any phone, yeah. As long as if you have a case that has a flat back, it works.
Right.
Because it's just a flat adhesive. So if it's got like grooves and stuff, it might not work on the case.
Yeah.
But
that's cool.
It's awesome.
That's cool.
And everyone who typically who sees me using it think it's weird until I explain like all the features of it, and it's only $10. So
that's all.
And if
$4.99 eBay.
If you want to go ridiculous, you can customize the color of each piece, and even put your own printed logo or whatever on the top.
Wow!
I'm surprised you haven't got Tuck's video on there.
Yeah. Well, that's because I got that before I made the channel. I would actually, but
that's the upgrade, is it?
What's really cool about this thing? And no, I'm not sponsored. I just really love this thing. They have this. Hold on.
I feel like I'm watching a late night commercial. Too can have the one
shopping channel.
Wait, we'll double this offer for all.
Wait, there's more.
There's more.
19.99, and one really complicated payment made only in doubloons. So there's this thing, and then.
And what is that for?
That goes in your car stereo.
Yeah, it's a car stereo.
Oh, okay.
But this,
I got you.
This is just my car stereo plate. This is the plate that goes on that plate. So it becomes like a whole.
So now that's stuck on your car stereo plate. You can't change your channel because you can't see what you're on.
This is a really crappy plate that I don't use anymore.
Ah, right. Okay.
It controls the volume and nothing else.
I see.
And this does everything else. But it's awesome because it just holds it, and then if you want to, GPS.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I bet you my phone does something you guys won't.
It flips.
No, bear with. Hang on. Let me see if I can get this to work. You're gonna get a real kick out of this if I can get it to work. But just give me a second here. Let's see. I see a little silhouette of a man.
Scaramouche, will you do the Fandango? Thunderbolt. Very, very frightening me. Galileo, Figaro Magnifico. I'm just a poor assistant. Nobody loves me. It's just a poor assistant from a poor family.
All right, Siri, shut up. That's that Apple thing. Somebody
Speaking of mobile phones,
Siri, all of a sudden starts wrong.
Speaking of mobile phones, there was a bit on Softpedia News about KDE Plasma. Developers are envisioning their product as being durable, usable, and elegant in the long run, planning to make it compatible with a wide range of devices from desktops and tablets to mobile phones.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds interesting. Will we ever get to the mobile phone? Plasma's got to be close than anyone else, isn't it? You think?
Well, I mean, look, I would love to see. I would surely use Plasma Mobile if it was around when it comes around. Whether they can actually break through into anything.
Well, they tried the Ubuntu phone and that didn't go anywhere. But
yeah, I mean, Canonical and all its money and everything else.
If it was possible to already get Plasma Mobile, wouldn't that be great? It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm not talking for I'm talking for normal people.
That's what I'm saying.
That'd be who? That'd be normal.
I'm convinced we're going to get Linux on the mobile phone. Even if we're not, I'm still hoping.
We have Linux on the mobile. It's called Android.
That's right.
I mean, a different kind of, yeah.
I think he's talking a non-Google Linux.
A non-messed up version.
Linux
Mate. It doesn't update and get worse and slower and worse and slower.
Plasma Mobile is actually pretty awesome. And yeah, it's not even more difficult than getting Ubuntu on a phone. So you can flash it just like you can CyanogenMod and stuff like that.
Wasn't there Sailfish or Bluefish or something that they tried?
Sailfish was made by the Yola people, and it fell apart pretty quick.
Okay.
You can still get it, except I think you can only buy it in the UK, the EU. And
so any phone, Michael? Is that any phone or only specific phones? Normally the Nexus is the one that
specific, like Nexus devices.
What happens to Samsung's Tizen operating system?
Still exists. Pretty much nothing using it. I mean, there are a couple Samsung phones that have it, but it's very, very limited.
So if Samsung built it, why isn't it on the S8? Madness.
It's not ready to replace Android. I mean, if Samsung were to ship a phone with it as a flagship, they would have to make sure that it is on par or better than Android. And Tizen is not that. So they can't really do it with reasonable expectations. Because they would become a laughing stock. And they already have the Samsung Galaxy S7 Note thing. So, they don't want to risk, our operating system doesn't really work as well right after our phone explodes.
But the S8's an ugly phone anyway. And the S8 Plus is even worse. I mean, things like that tall is ridiculous.
Well, I don't like giant phones anymore. I got this one and I didn't really like it because this was a replacement for one I liked. But I don't like big phones, but that's why I got that pop socket. Now I will always have it. But Plasma Mobile is cool, but it only works on a few devices. And it's also super early stage. What's cool is that it started as a fork of Ubuntu Touch. It currently is not at all Ubuntu Touch. They took some ideas, they took some tools that Ubuntu Touch created and re-engineered them and made their own. So Plasma Mobile is almost zero Ubuntu Touch now. It still uses some of the same stuff like the Android kernel that Ubuntu Touch was doing, but they're a lot more. There's a lot more progression than most people would think there is, especially considering there's so much Wayland support with Plasma Mobile. So you can have actually Plasma Mobile is 100% Wayland. So if you used it, you would actually be able to test different Wayland features and things. And I think Plasma Mobile is fantastic. That's why, but I use Android because
it works.
Because it doesn't have apps. Android itself is crap. I don't really care about anything about Android. It's just the apps are just you have to have apps. It's just
right.
Yeah. And I think that's the main reason why there's a difference between Linux and Windows. Windows just works. The same. Your argument was Android just works.
Yeah, Windows doesn't just work. Windows has apps. Same exact thing. Windows just works. Well, unless you got to do the updates that take 20 minutes every single time you do one update. Except for when it crashes all the time and is not responding for no apparent reason at all. You just click some random part of the window and it doesn't respond. And
you see, I keep hearing all of these. I've never had my window. Yes, okay, it will take 40 minutes to an hour to do a major update, but it doesn't crash or freeze. It just works.
You have a choice. When you try to turn your computer off, it forces you to update, and sometimes you turn it back on. It forces you to update. You have a choice.
You turn your computer off? Wow. Okay.
I don't use Windows. The longest my Linux has been up is a month or two, but I don't know. But anyway, so like Windows is all kinds of problematic. So it just works is not true. It works sometimes, but it works for the most people because it has applications, and that's it. And also isn't like $1,000 like Mac.
Well, if you notice, more of the software that's being put out too for Linux is also being app run too. I'll give you an example. Is Krita. Krita just, and there's another one too, I think recently that I tried, but I've got the shortcut on here, and it basically, instead of installing it on here, you can just run it as an app from the cloud, and it works great. And
okay, what do you mean?
Well, here, God, I keep forgetting I can't show you this. If you look up
bottom left-hand corner, Joe, you can say share screen.
What's that?
Right at the bottom where you've got all your controls on App Image, click share screen.
I don't see it. Oh,
and then click show what screen you want to show.
Mine's not highlighted. It's like it's grayed out.
Oh,
that's weird.
So,
that is weird because
it might need to do that.
Yeah, in any event, if you go to Krita's site, I don't know if you're into design work or whatever, or painting, but if you go to Krita, there's an option to run it as an app, and versus loading it on your system.
So you're using the term app to be specific as a definition, but it just means an application. So
no, it runs okay, like Peppermint, you can do the
SSBs.
Right, you can do something that's similar to that. Where basically you're pointing it to their site and it runs it from there. You don't actually have it physically installed on your.
Are you talking about an app image like Etcher?
I believe so. Let me see. Let me look at it.
It's not a cloud thing.
No.
I might have misspoke. Let me just see here.
App image is a download you put in your system.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's an exe file. Okay, maybe not.
Let's see.
It actually works well.
Yeah, it's just app images.
Oh. Yeah.
So yeah, it's not a cloud thing at all. And app just means application. And in this case, app image is a specific.
Yeah, it is an app image. I thought it was an actual app. Okay, it is an app image because I know there was something I saw recently that had
there's no actual
app. It didn't say image after it. So
there's no actual app. That's not a thing. The app just means an application.
Right.
So right. Everything. So every piece of software is an app. Just a different type of app.
Yeah, this is where my novice part comes in because this is something I just for the first time came across recently in the last month or whatever, and so I haven't really read up on them. So I'm learning something here too now. I just thought for whatever reason it wasn't native on your system when you loaded this.
No, yeah, not really. It actually is integrated in your system. It's just
okay.
It's a different. So there's 3 different types of universal app formats. App image is the first one. It's actually created 10 years ago as the name Click with a K, and no, it had nothing to do with the KDE.
I was going to say.
So, but it was called Click, and then it changed into Portable App for Linux, and then he changed it again to App Image. And okay. App Image has been around for a couple years now, but the whole project's like 10. So App Images are self-contained applications that have all the runtimes and all the stuff and that can be or need to be included in it. But it's not sandboxed, and it's not like separate from the system. It's integrated into the system, including to the point where it actually uses your home folder to store all the settings and stuff like that, like a regular app would. So it has a lot of integrations, and it works with your themes automatically. You don't have to worry about the font rendering or anything. It integrates perfectly with all that stuff. So, but again, no sandboxing, no security features applied to it. So you have the snaps and the Flatpaks that do it in a different way, where one does sandboxing in their own created thing, which is Flatpak, and then snaps do AppArmor, and those are all the universal structures. App Image is the best one now to use, and it's still up in the air which one, Flatpak or Snaps, will be like the future one. But my vote is Snaps because they can do more than Flatpaks can. But App Images are fantastic. I actually contribute to App Images in many ways. You'll see me on the forums and also trying to convince people to use App Images, which once people see how they're built, it's not that hard to do. And also what's really cool, like a couple weeks ago, like a month ago even, SUSE announced, or the OpenSUSE project announced that the Open Build service is actually integrating app images, so you can just automatically build app images from your spec files that you put in OBS.
Oh, wow. See, and I think the reason I thought it might have been cloud-based is because it's, now that you mention it, I think the only thing I remember downloading, I thought was maybe just, I thought it was just downloading a launch file, because it seemed like it was almost a split second compared to even the, which the typical install for software on here is relatively quick as it is anyway, but it didn't seem like it went through the same process. So, and then just, you know, click it, make it executable, you know, you right click, make it executable, and boom, it's up and running. So I just assumed it was a cloud-based thing. So
it's not. It has nothing to do with your package manager, which is a pro and a con. Pro being you can put it on any drive, move it anywhere, and it'll still work. Your settings won't go with it, but overall it'll still work, and it's super easy to install. The con is that there's no update mechanism built into the format.
Right.
You have to download a new app image every time. Yeah.
There are update notifications that allow you to automatically to pull in the new download. That is possible with an app image. It's just the format itself doesn't provide it.
Etcher allowed you to, or had a notification when you started it up if there was a new app image.
Etcher is an example of a web-ish app that's not really cloud but is web and is an app image. So it's like this weird combination of that could confuse people as to what it is, because it is web technologies building a native application using app images to package it. And
it's interesting that you're saying that, because I have a previous version loaded on here. I just wanted to bring it up to see if it would. I went into my search and brought it up, and it was 2.9. I don't know, it was 2.9.7 or whatever it was, and the app image is 3.1.4. So they must still run similar yet different. Yeah, I get that. I guess that's where I was thrown.
You can actually have multiple app images of different versions of the same application run at the exact same time. Like they are independent from each other, but they integrate with the system, but they're independent from each other.
Well, 2.9 was installed. I brought that in from the software center or wherever I brought it in, or the package manager. But the 3.14 was basically the app image I went in for. You know, and I don't even know if they give you an option to do that, to load the desktop with the latest version, so to speak, right now. Anyway, you have to do that.
Which app image?
Yeah.
Because it's simpler to say, here's this one thing you need, enjoy. Because it'll work on almost anything. Like it'll work on really old systems. I think the farthest back that app images support right now is CentOS 5, which is like 7 years ago. And maybe even older than that. I'm not sure exactly when 5 was out. But it's got this ridiculous build tree that you can have. Like it works on the latest versions and really, really old versions. Unfortunately,
well, I think the thing that's most concerning, though, is you said it won't save settings. I mean, if that's the case, that would be a little concerning.
Well, they save the settings in a separate folder, so you can't just move the app image. You have to move the folder too.
The settings, yeah, the settings are not saved in the app image itself. It's saved in your home folder, like every other application in Linux.
Okay.
Yeah, I was using an app image of Telegram for a little bit, and it creates a Telegram folder, and that's where everything gets stored. So if you want to save both, you have to save the folder and the app image.
Yeah, just like a normal Linux app.
I was just thinking, though, a 7-year-old OS, that'd be your worst nightmare, Rocco, surely.
It would be.
Wouldn't last 7 days, would it? Let alone 7 years.
I'm telling you, I'm switching. It's either going to be Budgie or KDE. See, the problem with going with KDE is I just don't know which one to pick. You know, like
solved the problem.
No, I mean, like, okay, Neon's fine. Neon is great, but you know, you go through that pain of updating to the first couple point releases, and then it's like it gets all wonky on you.
What pain? I've been using Neon from 5.6 and have the same install the whole time.
Did you watch my live stream like I don't know, a month ago or 2 months ago? Maybe it was a month ago. And I installed a fresh install of Neon, and then did a live stream on it, and I had so many issues and so many problems with it. And I was not used to that because I never had those issues with Neon before, ever.
I mean, it depends on what it is. Like
system settings crashing, Windows KWin crashing. There was just so many things going on at once. So many problems.
I don't know.
So I don't choose know Debian or Arch. Pick Debian or Arch, and then go Netrunner. Take your flavor.
Yeah, you might have some beginner's luck.
Maybe. What do you mean by beginner? Sorry.
I've just going on Flatpaks and AppImage and all that as we're talking about that. I remember Solus put Flatpaks within their distro, and since then I sort of kept an eye on Flatpaks, but I don't see huge development of a lot of apps coming into Flatpaks at all. I've been sort of every now and then I go to the website, but there's not much development going on there at all, or not much being added.
Nope. There's a lot more buzz around Snaps right now than there is Flatpaks.
Yeah. Okay.
Because Flatpaks are not as good.
I think I heard Mikey say he was considering Snaps as well. Is that right?
He was considering both Snaps and Flatpaks. He decided to go Flatpaks because he said that he liked their philosophy of how to do things. But he also said things that about Snaps that were not true, that I told him that were not true, that he had misinformation, and he just kind of ignored it. And then Martin Wimpress said the same thing I said, and he's like, "Oh, well, I'm still gonna use Flatpaks." Like, okay.
Well, speaking of flat, I'm going to bed, guys. So,
all right, man.
Good night. Thanks for the conversation.
Maybe we'll catch you next week. Okay,
sounds good. Ciao.
Yeah. Good night.
See ya.
But the Flatpaks are good. They're just not. They can't. They only do one thing. They are application level, nothing else. So you can't do IoT stuff with it. You can't do server stuff with it. You can't do anything else other than desktop applications in the user space. That's it.
But that works perfect for Solus, though, right? Because that's all they really concentrate on is the desktop.
Well, no, because what's going to happen when Budgie is switching over to Qt? Like,
I don't know.
Like,
does that affect that? I don't know.
Well, I'm saying, like, because GNOME controls Flatpak, and what are the odds that GNOME will, do whatever they want and not listen to people?
What are the odds?
So, Flatpak has a good concept overall fundamentally, but I don't think they're better. I think Snaps are way better, and I think neither one of them are better or the best option now. And I think installing Flatpaks is the most painful thing possible, because you have to install. When you install Flatpak itself, it crashes with this massive error and doesn't tell you that what really you just have to reboot your system. It doesn't tell you that. It just says, oh, here's this huge error, and it's like, error number 760 or something, and you got to figure out what it's talking about. And I went to a Flatpak developer and I said, what is this error? And he's like, just reboot your system. Oh, maybe you should just put that in the message. Maybe.
Yeah. Well, some of the distros put the support into it, like Ubuntu Budgie has it in the welcome screen, where you can just enable. Well, I think Flatpaks is already enabled, and Snaps you can install or something like that.
Ubuntu Budgie is Snaps. Every Ubuntu flavor has Snaps built in by default.
Okay, so it was the other way around. So Snaps is enabled, and then you can install Flatpak support.
Yeah.
So
it's still a pain to do so, but it's getting better and better. And KDE, the Discover software store has support for both Snaps and Flatpaks being developed now.
Right.
Already available and an experimental thing, but it's coming. I think 5.11 is going to have full support.
So forgive me for not knowing, but Synaptic, how does that work with Snaps?
Doesn't.
It doesn't. Great. So you're not going to be able to install a Snap from Synaptic.
Nope.
Snap's got to be done command line, is it? Command line.
No.
The
Ubuntu software.
From the App Store.
Oh, the Software Center. Oh.
Yeah.
So it's integrated that much into the software center.
So that leaves me out of KDE Neon because I can't handle Discover. So.
Are you talking bad about KDE Discover? Because let me tell you a thing or two about how really bad it is. It's awful.
It's terrible, dude. I don't like it at all.
Hey, let's take what would be best? We want to have this UI that would be great for a mobile phone and then blow it up for no reason. And, then,
and everything gets distorted.
Yeah, and then here's like, this is how it is. It's like, this is like the size of the header on Discover, and then there's the size of the content.
Mm-hmm.
And then the small content is next to a gigantic blurred icon. So it's like, good job.
But the biggest thing that drives me nuts about Discover is that nothing is sorted. Nothing is sorted alphabetically. Nothing. It's just there.
Just some of the stuff
randomly thrown in there.
Discover or not, it's not installable. Like they have that plugin applet widget section.
Yeah.
Some of those things are not actually installable.
No.
So it's
the idea is nice. Okay, they're trying to work on an app center or whatever, and they've made some updates to make it better, but it's still not even usable. It shouldn't even be in the distribution. Like they shouldn't even add it in there yet. It's almost like in alpha stage.
I agree. Neon could have it because they do like super fast access stuff. Kubuntu should not have it because it's not good. Like I can see what they were thinking. There's things about it that is good. It's just the user experience is just terrible. Like and they fixed a couple things, but there was one thing where once you activated looking at the details of an application, you couldn't close that section of the window. You just couldn't close it. So like the window that showed all these applications is now like this big. Like, oh great, this is I have to close the whole thing and start it over again to get the same vibe. So like that's kind of a terrible user experience, but they're working on it. So I saw some mock-ups. It is possible it's going to get better and better.
They're working on it.
Right now, it shouldn't be there. Especially in stuff.
It shouldn't be there right now. No.
When you're getting used to, like, if you're just getting the first experience with KDE, it should be like, no, go away.
Yeah. So, are you talking yourself out of KDE now?
I don't know, man. I'm not. Well, okay, but like I said, the first thing, it's one thing to say, Budgie or KDE, and then when you say you're leaning towards KDE, now you got to pick, you're going to Ubuntu, you're going to Arch, and then you're going, you're going to, no way. Just the monitor problem alone would keep me from using XFCE. The fact that it wants to put everything on my secondary monitor, even though I have my primary set, that just drives me nuts. What?
I said just the code will not want me to use XFCE.
What Budgie desktop you're talking about? Ubuntu Budgie, is it, or Solus Budgie?
Well, I would love to use Solus. I just can't get the software I need to use Solus. So I would have to go with Ubuntu Budgie.
Put in a software request. Only takes 3 months.
No, because some of the software requests, is not going to happen. Like, he's not going to put Zoom in Solus. It's not open source software. It's not, so that's not.
Compile it yourself.
What is Zoom, Rocco?
What do I look like, Seb? I am a
nerd. Yeah. Is it desktop Zoom you're talking about, or is it an application or something? What's Zoom?
No, it's the video application that we use to record Destination Linux.
Oh, well, that's what that is. Right. Okay.
So there's no way I can switch to Solus. I would love to, but I can't. So it would have to be Ubuntu Budgie, which is fine because it works great when I had it on. So.
I agree with the Solus thing too. I think Solus is fantastic, and what they're doing is great. Except, apps.
Yeah, it's always about apps. It always comes back to that, man.
Yeah. Then I don't have a problem with people using proprietary software. Like I would prefer people not to. I would prefer me not to. But there's just some cases where the proprietary stuff is better.
Yep.
And if it works on Linux, that's really enough for me.
Well, they got Google Chrome in there as a third-party app, and that's proprietary, isn't it?
That's because people ask for it.
That's right. So I don't know why they can't put things like Zoom in there for you, Rocco.
Well, I think it comes down to more. You have to prove that it's the best of its kind. You know, like for example, you have Skype, you have all these other ones that are in there already. So in order to keep the amount of requests down and everything, they're not going to add 50 billion of the same type of apps. So you would have to have some outstanding reason for them.
So
to
what is
this.
Zoom's competition that doesn't work?
Well, it's not the competition doesn't work. They all work. They just none of them give you a side by side. If you've watched Destination Linux, you'll see us side by side. Yep. And if we have 3 people, you'll see us with the 3 windows. No other application allows you to do that. It always goes back to flipping to whoever the live speaker is and being one window, or it just doesn't give you a side by side view, which is what I look for. So it's the only one of its kind.
And Appear.In doesn't do it either because the sizes of the box are automatically generated by Appear.In.
Well, we used to use Appear.In, but Appear.In messes with my mic as well, so that takes over the control of the volume, and we, like I said, we used it, and that's why we started looking for another app that didn't take control of the mic volume. So. And
those links we talked about, none of those helped.
No. Yeah, we talked about it. I've tried them all. Believe me, I've searched and tried pretty much every one of them, and none of them compares to Zoom. None of them.
I actually, the first time I used Zoom was when I was on Destination Linux, and it was surprisingly impressive software. Like, I didn't expect it to be good. And then it was like, wow, I understand why you use it.
Yep.
I don't remember what it was that impressed me because it was like 6 months ago, but it was very good.
Yeah, but not only that, but the support is awesome too. Like I emailed them and said to them I'm having this issue where I have 2 separate windows where I record from, where I have so if I'm recording, like I was recording with Rob, he would be on one screen and I would be on the other, but the one I would record from, I could have the speaker view where they were side by side, but I could still see him in the second window, so I could actually interact with him looking at him. And one of the updates they had, it turned it into a black screen where only one of the windows showed the actual window, so, and the other one was a black screen. And I emailed them, and within a couple days, they had said, here's a link to a test build, test it out, see if it works. And I tested it, and it works fine. And they said that fix will be in the next update. So really good support from them.
That is pretty cool.
I mean, it's called, you said Zoom?
It's you can zoom.us is the website.
It's pretty good.
Actually, speaking of Revenge OS, there was one problem I had with Revenge OS. They've got a welcome screen, and they've got also a tools thing. Any of those things that I clicked on to install software and all that, for some reason, I don't know if it's a GNOME thing, but when I tried to put the password in, I can't type any text in the box. So I don't know if the screen's been taken over by something, or it's on those 2 particular items, especially the welcome screen. Doesn't work. And I don't know, it might be a GNOME thing, I think.
It may be because I didn't have that trouble in XFCE.
Right. I haven't tried the XFCE. I might have to try that one.
Send a message to Jody or Jody James or Jody and James. They're very, very good at getting back to you.
Well, Zeb talks about XFCE, but the XFCE version of Revenge OS works really good. Just so you know, if you're an XFCE fan, that works really good.
Right, and that doesn't have Wayland, do you know, or you haven't tried it? I don't know if they all have Wayland or just the GNOME one has Wayland.
At all, because XFCE or Wayland in any way whatsoever.
Okay, so it must be just the GNOME desktop, would it be, Michael, that's got Wayland?
GNOME has partial Wayland support, not full.
Right. Well, this one's fully Wayland on the Revenge OS one at the moment.
That
I'm running.
That's probably what your problem is.
Yeah, actually, it probably is, isn't it? Yeah. Actually, now I think about it, probably is.
Production.
Yeah, okay.
The main thing.
That's what it'll be.
And Wayland not working with NVIDIA, is that NVIDIA or Wayland, or a mixture of the two?
You mean in your usage case, or do you mean?
Yeah, I load up a Wayland session and it just freezes after about 20 seconds.
Well, NVIDIA Nouveau works. NVIDIA proprietary partially kind of works, not really. It's because the Wayland support has not been completed by NVIDIA, so they haven't announced that support yet. They are working on it, and they have people working on fixing Wayland support. They also have people. There was actually a thing recently about X-Wayland in NVIDIA, and someone said that there was no plans for them to support X-Wayland, but there's actually people working in NVIDIA that are working on X-Wayland, so that's coming too. But NVIDIA is not the fastest to make releases and stuff, but they do typically have the best support that I've used, but they don't. They're not quick to jump on new technologies in the cases of like a display server and whatever. So I'd say GNOME. Like GNOME being full Wayland is problematic because a lot of things are not ready to do full Wayland. A lot of applications aren't compatible with Wayland because they need the X-Wayland shim to work.
I'm going to have to look for that little wheel cog to see if I can log into X. I'm going to have to look for that, see if it's there.
It's something like Revenge OS. I wouldn't be surprised that they're doing experimental stuff like that. I mean, Fedora is doing like full Wayland. Yeah, but, you know, Fedora is not the most popular desktop environment.
No.
So, but they do give you the opt-out of not choosing Wayland.
Yeah, that's true. But it's just like, I think Wayland's going to be great, but it's problematic right now. Like, there's going to be some interoperability issues with Wayland probably because the compositor is going to be separate in some of the cases. Like some things that some compositors are doing are separate from other compositors. Like Mutter is doing things different than Mutter and Clutter are doing things different than KWin. So there could be some situations where some Wayland applications might not work in the same way. We don't know for sure yet because we're still in the early stages of that, but it's possible. But Mate is talking about using Mir as the compositor for Wayland.
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah.
Mir.
Because Mir is actually pretty cool. A lot of people don't give credit to it because it's canonical.
Yeah, but I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that, you know, when you think Mir, you think Unity. So, and
yeah, Unity's also good.
So it's like you just put the two and two together, so you just automatically say no.
Unity, good. Mir, good. Snaps, good. Let's see, like Ubuntu Touch, pretty good. Most people didn't try it, but it was actually pretty good. The problem is canonical bad guy. Ooh.
Yeah.
That's typically when anyone talks about the technical aspects of what these things. There's no reason to hate Unity. Oh, it's slow. Well, that's because Compiz is slow. That sucks. But the features that Unity does are fantastic. The HUD, awesome.
Yeah, the HUD is pretty awesome, I have to say.
The global menu, fantastic. The locally integrated menus, awesome. The fact that you can have both at the same time, fantastic. The dash, not so much. But it's okay. But not that good. The HUD is like freaking great. When I first used the HUD, I was shocked at how useful that was. I used the HUD more than anything else when I was using Unity. And the fact that Unity was good so quickly and GNOME was so crap for so long just shows you that but Canonical makes good things. And Mir is actually a good compositor. And is a good display server, but it is limited because, you know, the adoption of Mir was super low because, oh, we hate Canonical because Canonical doesn't want to do these things and everybody hates it. Why why does Canonical always have to do these things and like non-invented here syndrome and like make their own desktop environment? Well, because GNOME sucked. But GNOME sucked. Because GNOME for the first 3 years, first 2 years, utter garbage, even to the point where Linus like made a blog post about how he hated it. And a year later, finally good enough to use. Not like production ready, but good enough. And then another year later, now it's fine. Go ahead, use it production use. But, you know, from that point on, every extension breaks every single time they make a new release. Themes will break at least 3 times during that period. So, is it ready? Who knows?
Why is it that
took 7
Why
years.
is it that Unity never put Unity Tweak Tool by default? Why is that? Is there reasons for these things? I mean, why did you have to always install Unity Tweak Tool?
Because Unity, it's the concept of you use Unity because you want the way Unity works, not to tweak Unity. So they said, here's our design vision. If you like it, great, use it. If you don't like it, well, don't use it.
A bit like Elementary does.
Yeah, like Elementary does.
Right.
Basically, they said, basically, Colin, they just said, we do what we want.
Yeah, but they're not forcing you to use it, and they're not making any changes that break any other things. They're making things that our desktop environment is what we want to use. If you like it, that's great. If you don't, well, okay, you know, fine. You're not forced to use it at all. We make other versions of Ubuntu, and we financially support multiple. Like they had to spend like at least a few dozen thousand or so dollars to have the infrastructure of all these different flavors,
give or take.
Yeah, that's a random pulling out of my butt number, but yeah, it's a lot of, they have to put a lot of infrastructure in the Launchpad and management of all these different tasks to get all of these different flavors all out at the same time. Like that's.
But I can understand people's rebuttal when if you're using GNOME 2 with Ubuntu, which I used to do, and you could do a lot of things, a lot of tweaking, which was somehow or some kind of fun for Linux. It was another thing, but you could do your desktop as well. But then along came Unity. Now I've got nothing against Unity. I quite like the way it works, but and even just before they've jumped off ship, it was working great. You got all your tweaks and all that. But at first, when you went into it, it was like all this stuff that you knew you could do, you couldn't do. And then people say, oh, well, why do people hate Unity and all that? It's that initial change that they did from having fun to can't do this and can't do that. I think that's where all that comes from, isn't it?
Because the same thing was true with GNOME. The first version of GNOME had like 3 extensions.
And KDE.
Absolutely.
KDE 4 to KDE 5. People hated it initially.
Yeah.
Well, that's because people should not have been using it. That's like saying, hey, this thing that's right now, it's beta and alpha, you shouldn't use it. Well, let's use it and judge it like it's been out for 5 years. Like, that's just insanity. People are like, well, GNOME is so great now. KDE Plasma 5 has been out for like 6 months. And it's not even production ready. And they said that up front. Don't use it in production. Don't expect it to be a stable system because it's not. And you're comparing it against GNOME that's been out for 5 years. It's like, that's ridiculous.
Well, Unity, I think a lot of people didn't like it because it was limited. It was next to no customizations, and GNOME is prettier on the surface. Is the only way I took it. I mean, when you think about it, if you're a keystroke type of person, you like to run with keys, GNOME would probably suit better, I think. But
I agree with your point, but I would say that that's not why people can dislike something and not use it and say, I don't like this because it doesn't appeal to me. But the hate of Canonical is absurd and, in my opinion, completely stupid.
Yeah, I agree with that.
not like Canonical.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
Made it so Linux became not just some obscure thing on the side and is actually sort of mainstream now, thanks to Canonical. Let's forget that completely and just hate them. Like,
they became the MS of Linux.
Mm-hmm. Like, but not because of anything that they did. I don't think.
There's things, there's things they did that were stupid, but they were not like horrible. Hate them for it.
What I'm saying is they weren't Microsoft-ish, like to that level.
Right. Yeah.
No.
For reasons for people to hate them. Yeah, sure. Every company makes decisions people don't like, but
right. Yeah. So it's kind of ridiculous.
People like using a WordPress site with a weak password and have your distro stolen for so many hours and malware put into it, like Mint.
That's perfect. We are okay with that. We completely ignore it, and people are apologists for Mint and say, "Oh, Mint's great. And Mint's the best thing for absolute beginners," because they don't care. Mint doesn't care either.
I don't really hate anyone for anything, any decision they make. And like you said, I choose to use something else because of it. And it's like Elementary. When Luna, I think it was Luna, they had some great tweaks. You had the wing panel. You had a Conky with news and weather and everything. It was just awesome. And I so looked forward to the changes moving forward. And then slowly I started taking this out. Why haven't they got this in? Maybe they'll put it in the next one. And then that wasn't there. And then changes were removed even more. So like you say, moved on to something else. But they went from sort of like awesome, because I'd still be using it now if you could tweak. And maybe all these developers that you're paying for apps are probably missing out from those people that might have continued to use it, if not for those things.
But Elementary, they came up with a design ethos. They've kept with it. And now he has this OS that people just install and use. They don't want to tweak it. They don't want to play with it. They don't want to add bits and pieces. They just want to turn it on, get on the web, do their email, do their writing, and not have it break. And that's what Elementary does, because you can't play with it.
And that's also, one of the draws to Ubuntu or to Unity, that, you just install it and use it.
But developers have got ways around it now, which is why you can install PPAs on Elementary. You can install the tweak tool and to a certain degree, tweak it up, because people have found ways around it. But you've got to admire the guy and what he's doing with the App Store and allowing people to pay for apps along the way, and it goes to the developer, not the OS. I think it's great.
No, it goes 70% the developer, 30% the OS.
Yeah, but that's still 70-30.
But still, here's a link to the people. Donate to the people who make the software that you're using instead of us taking money from them.
But this goes back full circle to what I said earlier, even about this right now. Even though I'm using, Mint on here or whatever, it's like when we talked about the drivers. If it isn't broke, don't fix it, kind of thing. I think for anybody who wants to just load something up, have it run, have it work, it's like the less you know, the more enjoyable it is. The more you know, the more critical. I don't want to say less fun, but it almost, what I'm saying. The more you start learning about this stuff, you're less satisfied. I guess maybe that's where the distro hopping comes and all the other things with it, because the more you learn about it, And now after this conversation tonight, as much as I've been enjoying this, I told Rockwell earlier, I saw several weeks and I'm still not happening. And he goes, "Oh, you're cured." And now all of a sudden, I think my cure is failing.
But going back to what Zeb said, I think Elementary I think that whole App Store is a good idea, though, because even though you said, like Michael, you said about there's a link for the developer and they get 100%, 90% of people are not going to do that. Not that they shouldn't, but that's not going to be a big thing where people do. Where people are used to paying a couple dollars here, like for Android apps, that type of thing. I think you're going to see more money flow going, even if the developer's only getting 70%. I think they're going to see more money flow from an app store than they are from a donation link.
Well, challenge accepted.
I mean, who knows? Who knows how it's going to work out?
I can put in their store, and I have software that also has donation requests. So We'll see, sir.
Yeah.
Okay.
But have you also seen as well that I forget the guy's name who does Elementary, but he often appears
Daniel
on
Fiore.
Yeah, he often appears on Brian Lunduke's streams, and Brian is always asking him, "How's the App Store coming along? What's the money stream like? How are you? What are you earning? What are the developers earning?" And he never answers. He will not tell you the figures that are pumping through. Whether they're small or large.
The public's business what the people are getting, the developers are getting. The developers wants to disclose that information, feel free. It's not his right to disclose the information that's for developers getting money. Just like if someone said, "How much money are people donating to your particular project?" None of your business.
Mind your own business, yeah.
Right.
Like if one of my donors wanted to know how much they're benefiting us in comparison to other people. Sure, great. That's awesome. I'll tell you. But like just random people on a podcast pestering me about how much money is why is how much money the most important topic? Why is it every time you meet someone, they're like, "What do you do? What's your job?"
Well, he was trying to compare it, I think, to the Ubuntu store that came out for a while and was a complete flop.
Well, I mean, his reference of what a complete flop is his own software, which we can debate whether that's his software or whether it's the store.
And I think developers could start.
Once you disclose, you say something, it's out there, and then if it goes in a different direction, then you look like then what? Then you get the wrong impression. And the one thing about Elementary, I think that people have liked is it's very polished looking. I mean, I would think, even if nothing else, if you don't know, if you never did anything with Linux before and you were switching over and you gave it a try, I think the total brand new, let's go to newbie, or first person coming over would like it for that reason alone, because of its polished look, it's easy to use, right? Or are you laughing at me because I'm all up behind ears again?
Because you said newbie.
Beginner.
We're gonna go back to the whole newbie beginner thing.
No, we'll go back to so let's say the guy that first walks over and puts it on his machine for the very first time. So it's a relatively easy OS to use, and it's pretty looking. And I think that's another thing that I hate to say it, I think that's another thing that people look at is how nice something looks. If it seems a little too complex for them or they can't figure it out, then they get frustrated easy, and then all of a sudden it's this is crap, and they don't ever look at it again.
Are you talking about me?
Never
sounded like you were talking about me.
No,
this is crap. I'm not doing this.
I think it would be an advantage to the developers if they could actually somehow put some annoying thing within the menu or something to donate, rather than pay up front.
You're just
people just wouldn't use it.
Like here's an example of what we do. You get as a download manager that I'm a part of the project for. We have a banner when you first load the application. It says, "Hey, would you like to donate to our project?" If you say no, it won't ask you again.
No, make it ask until if you want to run, if you genuinely like that operating system. See, at the moment you go to Elementary, you're paying for something you don't even know how it works, whether you like it or not, right?
You don't have to pay for it.
I know you don't. I know you don't have to pay for it, but I mean, so what do you do? If you install it, you go back to the website and then don't make a donation, or I'm not sure how that works.
There's already a distro out there like that.
But if you genuinely like that desktop and you want to get rid of the pop-up and the annoying notification, make a donation, it's gone.
No,
right?
I would never use that application. Three pop-ups and that application would be discontinued, and I'd go and find something else that didn't pop up.
Yeah,
so, with mine, there's multiple banners, but we only ask you one time to pay the donation. The other banner is
cool.
Notifications of new releases or notification of a survey we're doing, things like that. So like once you dismiss them, they go away. And in my opinion, if you ask for something like that, like before we started asking in the application, we got like $10 a year max. And since adding it, we've made significant more.
That's an answer. You didn't say we've made, you just said we've made significantly more, which is good, which means that type of process works. And that's all Brian Lunduke was trying to work out. Is the App Store working? and he wouldn't even give him an indication.
I'm talking about our donation requests.
No, sure, yeah.
But I'll put it into the App Store if they'll take it, because it is something that is pretty popular. So I'm not really against doing that, and it is open source, so they would accept it in that case.
Well, your point, Colin, about the nagging window, yeah, it could go either way. You may get a few more donations, but you may get a lot less people actually using the app just because of the nag. So
okay.
Sublime Text is a perfect example. Sublime Text
goes south in a hurry.
Fantastic! It is the best text editor ever, and it's Nagware. So it's 100% free evaluation, gratis free, not free software, gratis free forever. But every 100 to 150 saves, it goes, would you like to buy it now? And you click nope, and it says, all right, see ya. And then another 150 later, you'd like to buy it now?
That would be acceptable, but every fifth save would be a pain.
Yeah, it's actually fine. They're not being incredibly irritating, but even that reasonable difference of asking has people go, I'm not going to use that. It just annoys me all the time. No, it doesn't really, but I understand if you don't like that idea, but it's like the people, because even though they're doing something completely reasonable, people are incredibly irritated by it. And if you had like something that was in the menu and like annoying to them, totally going to like way beyond. Like the people are going to get infuriated to like not only just not like it. People don't like, I don't like Sublime Text because of this. They would just hate it. Like if they did that kind of pop-up constant annoyance. Which it's like going to a website that has a 1,000 ads on their website.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's certain websites you go to that always ask you to subscribe to the newsletter or something ridiculous like that.
Or, hey, would you like to do a survey the very first time you ever come to our website and have no idea what you're talking about? Let's do a survey.
Believe it or not, I even hate the ones that say, hey, we notice you're running ad blocker. Yeah, I am. Sod off. Let me on.
Right.
And they say, well, you're not going to come on until you turn the ad blocker off. Bye.
Well, and I pointed out.
I thought it was worth a discussion anyway.
As an example on here, I mean, they kind of have the same principle where, it can run Windows, you can do Windows XP and all of a sudden. And then you go to click on the stuff in their menu and it takes you to their website where they push to get a donation out of you to be able to use those features. And that's why if you were to go on DistroWatch, I was curious to see how far it's dropped down. It's 92 out of the top 100, and it was 137 yesterday, and now it's 136. It keeps dropping down the line. That stuff like that, speaks volumes too. I know myself, it seemed like it was going to be a cool OS until I started seeing that, and I thought, I'm not giving it a second look again. I just won't do it.
The claims they make are insane.
What's that?
RoboLinux claims are insane.
Oh, I know. It's way off base.
Well, Windows perfectly fine. You can run Windows and Linux, and no, you can't. That's a virtual machine. That's not what it's doing. Okay. And also, do you have the license to provide a virtual machine to everyone? Probably not. How are you?
Probably not.
So yeah, I'm gonna go with RoboLinux is crazy.
Well, it rubs right against the grain of what Linux was all supposed to be based on, is the way I took it.
But they don't charge you for it now either. It's free.
What do you mean? What Linux was supposed to be based on?
Well, the open source movement, where all this stuff started was the idea is that people had an alternative, like Stallman's belief is that everything, it's got to be open source and free and, nothing to be charged for or whatever. Well, you got to make money somehow. But to me, the way I took this OS is like trying to circumvent the idea of having an open source or a free OS to use. Let's put it that way, because that's what most people understand. And then you're got all these things you want to charge for within the OS, and I think it's a turnoff. I mean, I don't know if I'm conveying what my thought is, but correctly. But you know what I'm trying to say. I mean, if people come to Linux because everybody knows Linux as it's a free operating system that you can use. Well, they don't think about the developers behind and how money is generated and whatever. And I'm glad to see that there is, staffing and money being made to support this, because obviously, there's a lot of people that want to work on it. I would work on it if I knew how to code and donate my time, because that'd be a way of giving back. So when I can, I do my donations to the ones I want to support. But to sit there and try to use that system and circumvent, it's like when let me give you another example. If you go on, I'll use eBay as an example. You go on and you see all these distros being sold on there, and you can slowly see some of the prices creeping up for these discs to get it. Well, the theory was, yes, you could charge to put it on a piece of media, but you can't charge for the OS. But when you look at some of the pricing, the way it's starting to get up there, they're getting up there about 50%. Some of them are 50% of what Windows is costing now. It doesn't take that much to put an OS on a piece of media.
The argument is that labor of the person's time is dictated by them.
I get that, but it's just, to me, where's the line crossed from circumventing what the premise of
you're providing a service because someone is too lazy to go and burn it themselves, or they don't know.
Well,
if you're willing, it's like, why does anybody hire a gardener? Because I hate bloody gardening.
No, I get it.
So,
I get it.
If you don't like burning a CD to your disc, go and buy it.
All right.
Like I agree that they're overcharging, but it's also a preference of you charge what they'll pay for it. If they'll pay for ridiculous high prices, then good luck with your sleeping well tonight because you're evil. But
hey, look at Apple. It's exactly the same thing. It's a computer that works and gets you onto the internet and the web. So why would you want to pay $1,500 for a 15-inch Retina laptop when you could pay 600 quid for a Lenovo and it does the same thing?
Yeah.
If people can market it and get the money.
They don't have the same OS, so that's one argument. But as far as
but you know what I mean, the principle.
It is a waste of money, in my opinion.
Yeah, the proprietary. Yeah.
The only thing Apple has over Linux, say, because most things that if you can install command line stuff that are very similar and in some ways are the exact same functionality to install, but Apple has a universal package format they've had for a very long time, which created the platform for applications to be built, Photoshop and Premiere and things like that. So, Linux problem is that it doesn't have any kind of cohesiveness, and everybody's always arguing and disagreeing with how things should be built and how things should run. And because Apple doesn't have to deal with that, they have almost all of the benefits that Linux does, but also has applications. So
their file system, if you look at Apple, is pretty much the same thing because it was built off Unix to start out with. So the base platforms, if you go in and look at their actual file system, they've got the home menu. They got a lot of the same file structure in there if you look as a Linux system. The other thing where Apple, though, I think they've done excellent marketing. I think that's what it comes down to too. Everybody says, "Oh, it just works" or whatever, and it's virus free. Well, it's not virus free because my son's a big Apple user, and he's had his share of viruses from time to time. It still comes down to you can't protect the users from themselves. It doesn't matter what you have. But the structure itself is still very similar to Linux. But I agree with you in a sense. I think part of the problem with Linux is, yes, it's fun to be able to build your own distros and everything else, but the problem is there's just way too many out there. I mean, there's been a lot of discussion about there should be maybe one or two or whatever. If everybody put their efforts into just developing something that worked well and was sound, I think it'd be a lot further ahead. Wouldn't you agree with that, at least, Michael? Instead of having 1,000 distros out there to pick from?
I think it would be a slower development than XFCE because you'd have this forum of 12 developers in a room arguing all day long as to which way they should be going, and you'd never get anything out.
So, Joe, I say that what you're saying is 100% accurate and impossible.
Yeah.
So, if
nice idea, right?
if everybody worked together, we'd all have something that's completely solid and it'd be great and, no problem. But everybody has these vastly different opinions of how things should be done. And that's what created the whole distro and fragmentation in the first place. And that's what it's continued to do. And that's why all these companies are now making their own distro, because we totally need that. But it's Pop OS, Tuxedo, Ubuntu's Ubuntu edition.
It's Pop underscore or Pop exclamation.
Exclamation point underscore OS.
Yeah, get it right, will you?
O, capital S. Thank you.
Watch out for pizza, man.
well, look, I got to stop everybody here because, like, this, I mean, I love the discussion, but this could go on for another hour, and I can't go on for another hour. So,
well, it's been an extra long one because it's 7:30 in the UK.
Yeah, well, it's 2:35 a.m. here, and I got to get up in a few hours. So,
it's exactly the same time here, Rocco, except it's afternoon.
Yeah, sorry, man. I got to get some sleep. All right, thanks for stopping by, and we'll probably do it again next Friday. So.
No problem.
Thanks so much indeed.
Yeah, it was
night, everybody.
Pop bang. Pop bang underscore.